You become jaded to what you're doing because it happens so little by little, like we were talking about earlier. Everything is commonplace because it happens gradually. And just took the time to think about what I was doing, and it hit me that high school Alex would consider what I'm doing now making it, And that was a cool realization. And now I recognize that there's a whole lot more work to be done. But if I went back and talked to that version of myself, that dude would have high-fived the shit out of me.
Hey everybody, what's cracking? I'm feeling super pumped today. I recorded an awesome podcast last night with my friend Heidi that I cannot wait for you guys to listen to. I'm recording 2 more podcasts today, so I'm super pumped about that. And the conversations that I get to have because of this podcast are definitely the best thing about doing this. It's really what keeps me going. I absolutely love it. Yesterday marked exactly 1 month since I officially launched the Andrew Deitch podcast, and I have just been tickled pink with how much support I have gotten. It's mind-boggling, so thank you so much for listening. My guest today, I'm super stoked because I have an awesome guest for you guys today. My guest today is the amazingly talented musician and photographer, Alex Guthrie. And you might already know who he is, even if you don't really know him, because the man is in a nationally airing ad campaign that he recently did with American Family Insurance, where Jennifer Hudson pops up and does a surprise duet with him. And I keep seeing his face on billboards, hearing his commercials on the radio, seeing him on TV, and it's crazy. Like, every time I see it, I freak out. Like, I'm like, whoa, that's my friend. That's my friend Alex. I know this guy. I can't believe I'm friends with this dude. He's on a giant billboard. Like, it's crazy. It really is crazy. And I met Alex about 5 years ago through my roommate at Georgia College, Connor Sova. Shout out to Connor Sova. What's up, dude? But that was around the time when he was first auditioning for American Idol, and he basically dropped out of college to go compete in the 3rd round. And he almost got through, but you'll hear that whole story in just a bit. Needless to say, Alex did not stop, and he has so much exciting stuff coming soon. His album, Lessons Learned, is available on iTunes, Spotify, and wherever else you listen to music. And he has new music coming very, very soon. And in just a second, I'm going to play one of his songs. But in this episode, we talked about how he got into music, his experience with American Idol, dealing with depression, going on a giant road trip across America, going on tour with his band, how he got the whole commercial with Jennifer Hudson, and he tells a story about how it actually was a complete surprise, despite lots of people saying that it wasn't, and getting his band together, how they record, and much, much more. We talked about a whole bunch of stuff, but this is one of my favorite podcasts so far. And before you listen to our conversation, I'm going to play 2 of Alex's tracks off of Lessons Learned. At the very end of the episode, I'm going to play a song called Luckiest Man, but right now, I'm going to play his most popular track, which is called Colorado. The lyrics are amazing, so I'm just going to shut up. Please enjoy Colorado by my friend Alex Guthrie.
I got sepia tones running through my bones, and an old-timey tune played through analog phones. And here's where the 11 only 20 to show. Some may say that I'm an old soul. I had a pain in my heart and no smile on my face, so I let it all go, life's too precious to waste. Oh, and I did what I could, yeah, I gave it my best. Nothing here for me, oh, I'm headed out west, out west. Because the interstate is calling, the knocking at my door. I love what I've been given, but I'm always wanting more. Colorado, I'm a-comin'. I think it's time for me to go. Colorado, I'm a-comin'. Colorado, take me home. Back to my car, left a note on the door. Not a care someone sees it, not a care who it's for. Oh, my window rolled down, one wind rushing by. Colorado, I'm coming, Georgia, this is goodbye. Cause the interstate is calling, the road's knocking at my door. I love what I've been given, but I'm always wanting more. Colorado, I'm a-comin'. I think it's time for me to go. Colorado, I'm a-comin'. Colorado, take me home. Oh, I'm tired of this city, I'm tired of these places. I'm sick of seeing the same old faces. These tattered old shoes and the clothes in my pack. I'm headed out west, I'll never look back. Because the interstate is calling, the road's knocking at my door. I love what I've been given, but I'm always wanting more. Colorado, I'm a-comin'. I think it's time for me to go. Colorado, I'm a-comin'. Colorado, take me home. Colorado, I'm a-comin'. Colorado, take me home. Because the interstate is calling, the road's knocking at my door. I love what I've been given, but I'm always wanting more. Colorado, I'm a-comin'. I think it's time for me to go. Colorado, I'm a-comin'. Colorado, take me home. Colorado, I'm a-comin'. Colorado, take me home. Colorado, I'm a-comin'. Colorado, take me home.
All right, Alex Guthrie, we are live, sir.
Okay, we're already doing it.
You were just saying this is the first podcast you've ever been on. The other ones fell through.
So without a doubt, it's the most notable podcast I've been on ever.
Wow.
Yeah.
Same, actually. Well, actually, I take it back. I did a podcast with my friend Graham like a couple weeks before I started my podcast, and it was like I'd been toying with the idea of starting one, and then once I did that, I was like, this is really fun. I want to do this.
I feel like let's start a podcast is the 21st century way of saying let's buy a bar.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. That's really funny. Yeah, like podcasts are just taking off.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the car so much, I barely even listen to music anymore in the car.
Yeah, music can kind of get old, especially, I don't know what it is. Like sometimes you really are in the mood to listen to some awesome music.
It's great if you're driving 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. If you crack that 20, 30-minute threshold, all of a sudden, like you can only take so much of 3-minute blocks of focus.
Yeah, and it also helps me not look at my phone while I'm driving.
Absolutely agree.
Because I find myself when I'm listening to music, my phone will buzz or something, and I'll want to look at it, mm-hmm. or I'll put, I have a post on Instagram that I put up, on the way here. Literally, I just put up a post, and I was like, oh, I wonder how that's doing. Yeah. And I'm just like, shit, no, like put it away, Andrew. Like, what are you doing?
And it's not even like you actually care to check. It's just the habit of it. Mm-hmm. And if you have a podcast, you kind of forget that everything else is happening.
Yeah, totally.
And you get to feel like you're, somewhat smarter.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Speaking of doing the podcast, I'm going to put my phone.
Yeah, I threw mine on silent.
Yeah. I normally do, but I was just like, let's jump into this, and then I just forgot. But so Alex Guthrie, I've been starting a lot of my podcasts pretty much just like sharing some context of how you grew up and how baby Alex grew into manly adult Alex. But before that, people already kind of know who you are because of the intro. I put in a little intro at the beginning, and I'll say, this podcast is with my amazing friend Alex Guthrie. He's a musician, blah, 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 blah. But like, in your own words, how would you describe yourself now, and then kind of give us some context?
So we starting from beginning and just doing like the little bar conversation version. I grew up really, really interested in reptiles and always planned on being a herpetologist, one who studies reptiles. Did not care about music. Had an older brother, 14 years older than I am, who tried so many times to get me involved in music, and I just had no care at all. Fast forward to like, 12, 13, we had just gotten into middle school, and I went from being kind of a nerdy kid to like, I shot up like 6 inches, had long, awesome black hair, and just was starting to feel like, oh, maybe if I could just break through to the cool kids, everything would be awesome.
And this is in high school?
No, this is in middle school.
Gotcha.
This is in middle school. So I went back and I thought about my brother, and I'm like, okay, he plays guitar, he's cool. It stands to reason, if I play guitar, maybe I'll be cool too. And so I picked up a guitar pretty quickly, and my hope was that girls would pay attention. They didn't right away, but I just love music. So started playing music full time. I'm really just doing that ever since.
That's so cool, man. Yeah. So growing up, your older brother, how many brothers do you have?
I have one brother and one sister.
Gotcha. And they're both older?
Yeah, 12 years older and 14 years older.
So did you guys get along pretty well? Because, I mean, that's a lot older.
At that point, there's not a whole lot to argue about. They're just a second set of parents.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because 12 and 14, it's a big deal. And then by the time you even start knowing things, you're like 4, and they're like 18.
Yeah. Brother was in college when I was 4.
Wow, that's crazy. That's because like I'm the oldest, and my brother's only like 3.5 years younger. So like I cannot relate at all.
Really?
In the sense that I can think about relating about it.
Right.
But like as far as having that older brother figure, I didn't really have anybody in my life that was like that much older.
Right.
So I think like growing up, I was always more nervous around older kids because I never like had a way to get in with them. You know what I mean? Whereas like my younger brother, he's more comfortable, I think, talking with older kids because like he would talk with my friends and stuff like that.
Did you feel more comfortable around his friends? Like,
yeah.
Like, not that you wanted to be around younger kids, but kind of, this is what I'm comfortable with, so I feel like I can maintain this position.
Kind of. I think more along the lines of like, if my brother was hanging out with his friends, I just wanted to like hang out with my friends.
Right.
But my brother always wanted to hang out with me and my friends because it was
familiar
cooler
with
to hang
that.
out. Yeah, exactly. So like, it was more along the lines of my brother wanting to hang out with the older kids.
Yeah.
And like I said, when I went to high school, I didn't really know anybody. So like, and I didn't have an older brother or sibling. And yours were way older, so their friends were long gone. Yeah, for sure. But like, as far as some of my other friends, like, oh, they have an older sister, so they already kind of know some people or whatever. Like, oh, dude, Keegan knows this girl, or like, oh, this guy, Michael knows this girl, or whatever, stuff like that.
It would amaze me. I went to the same high school that my brother and sister did, so some teachers were still around, and I get there, they'd be like, "Hey, are you Cam and Nikki's younger brother?" I'm like, "Geez, you still remember that?"
That is pretty crazy.
20,000 kids go through this school since then?
It is crazy how teachers remember. That is very true. But so anyways, you in middle school, you started playing the guitar and stuff.
Right.
I mean, obviously in the beginning you probably sucked.
Everybody does.
Yeah. When do you think it's too late to start playing guitar?
I don't think there is a too late. I think that there's a too late point to have time to dedicate it to learn quickly. And I think that once you start having a job or you're in school, it's harder to devote that time. But when you're 14 years old, you only have time. I sat in my room for a whole summer and like 6-8 hours a day, I just played guitar. Dang.
Did you get a carpal tunnel ever?
I've never had carpal tunnel. I get tendonitis pretty consistently.
Dang. So the forearms were like jacked after that summer, I'm sure.
Yeah. I've got one forearm that's like twice the size of the other.
It really is, actually. For people listening to this, you can't see it, but
a noticeable difference.
That is actually a noticeable difference. That's funny.
Yeah.
And it's your left, because that's the
fretting.
That makes sense. So if you had to arm wrestle a lefty, you'd be good.
Yeah, and I am a lefty, so like 2 reasons why.
So you're a lefty, but you play guitar the normal way.
Yeah, I do.
Huh. Mm-hmm. Why is that? You just
I tried to learn left-handed, and my brother flipped the guitar and said, "No, you'll never be able to play anybody else's guitar. Learn it this way."
That actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, right? Thank you, Cameron.
Thank you, Cameron.
I don't know if I've ever formally thanked him for that one.
Well, Cameron, if you're listening, he owes all of his guitar success to that very moment. That's awesome, man. So, like you said, girls didn't really notice at first, but like once you started, and when did you realize you could sing too? Because that's obviously a big part of it.
I tried singing when I was 14 or so. But I wasn't particularly good.
What do you think? I mean, because I think it's a pretty big misconception that people think like, oh, well, he was born really good at singing, and I think that people don't think of singing as like a skill that you can get better at as much. They kind of just think like, oh,
I think that there is a lot of it is innate ability, because a lot of it's just the mechanical characteristics of your mouth and your throat that will, decide what your tone's going to sound like. You can only change so much. But for me, it's hard to think back. I always was singing from a young age, but I don't know if I was ever really anything good or unique or anything.
No one was ever like, oh, damn, Alex,
I did plays, and so it was like fine for fifth grade musicals. But I was in my first band. It was the same guys. We had like 5 different names, as we changed genres. My first band, we ended up accidentally becoming kind of like a Led Zeppelin cover band, and we couldn't find a singer. So in the meantime, I sang it, and I never had a Robert Plant voice, but I faked my way through it and ended up going, oh, this is pretty cool. I'm going to continue doing that.
That's awesome. So like what kind of music were you listening to when you got into all that?
At the time, I was trying to pretend like I was really into the whole screamo thing.
Yeah. And
the 90s grunge. So I sang a lot of like Eddie Vedder and
That's awesome.
But I did that until I was like 17.
So you were like, did you do like screamo band kind of thing or not really?
I half-assed it.
Gotcha.
We were in kind of a screamo band. You know Tyler Seaman?
Yeah.
He and I were in a band with a guy named Anthony Founds, and it's hard to say what genre it was. It was whatever kids who were trying their best could do.
Yeah.
But I was the rhythm guitarist, and I wasn't a singer. So I don't know. I was just kind of there.
When did you like realize that it was something that you were like really passionate about? Because obviously in the beginning, and you suck at playing guitar, it'd be very easy to be discouraged and just kind of give up and it's not for me.
Probably, honestly, about a year and a half in, I really, really loved it, and I didn't want to play sports anymore. My parents always made me wrestle and play football, and I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. Please just let me play guitar. And finally, I was like, I don't want to break my hands, and that was the argument that worked.
I don't want to roll around with sweaty dudes anymore.
Right? I can do that at a bar for free. So,
especially a gay bar, if you're really into it.
Yeah, really, a lot of options. The world is your oyster. No, but I probably like 15 decided that I wanted to pursue it, but I wasn't sure what that meant. So by the end of high school, I mean, I had been accepted to, you and I had the same kind of situation. We went to college out of the obligation of going to college, and really quickly found out that it was taken away from what I wanted to do, and I was splitting my time doing both of them poorly. That I finally kind of decided, I went on American Idol, made it like 3 rounds in, never made it to TV, but decided to skip my finals of my first semester in college to go to what ended up being my last round on American Idol. And that was kind of like the kicker, because I went from having a decent GPA to a 0.0 after all of my finals were heavily weighted. And I went, all right, well, guess I'm doing music now.
Yep. That's actually kind of awesome. That's kind of how, like you said, similar kind of story, because we actually met, for people who are listening, through my freshman roommate at college. Well, it was my suite mate. So me and my friend Brian lived together, and then the way that the dorms were set up was there was a bathroom connecting 2 rooms, basically a suite, and that was called a suite. So it was me and Brian, and then my friend. Well, actually, in the beginning, it was a different guy named Zach, and then Connor Sova, which was Alex's friend.
Yeah, and our first bassist.
and
that's how he
Connor was your first bassist in the band. That's awesome. I was gonna say I felt like Connor was in your band at one point.
Yeah.
And it was funny because and then eventually my friend Corey moved in with us, and Zach moved out. But anyways, I remember like the first weekend at GCSU, it was like you and who else was there?
Andrew Brownson, probably.
I think Andrew came, and also, oh my gosh, blanking on names. The two guys that went to Georgia Tech. I feel really bad. Quinn and Austin. Yes, Quinn and Austin came up.
Love those guys.
And a couple other people. I can't even remember it all, but I just remember like you guys all came up and like partied with us, like the first weekend of GCSU.
I had been such a prude up until around that time, and we went. I remember showing up and just stumbling my way through the streets, thinking, "All right, this is college. I've seen TV. We're doing it.
We're doing it, man. We're doing it. We're drunk. We're stumbling through the streets,
counting how many beers we had, feeling like we're so cool."
My
Connor.
It was funny because we were hanging out with you guys, and like the first week of college is supposed to be all about like meeting other people that go there.
Yeah.
And we were just hanging out with
nobody.
you guys. We met nobody. We just met Alex, and here we are, man.
Paid off.
It totally paid off. I don't know any of those guys really anymore at GCSU, which is funny. But yeah, it was that was fun. I remember that first weekend we were mixing with Gatorade Rain.
Oh my
We
gosh.
kept talking about Gatorade Rain. Like, Gatorade Rain, dude? What the heck, dude? I don't even remember why we were saying that, but it was so funny.
I remember losing you.
I definitely remember that. I also
I don't want to
remember.
incriminate too much. I remember seeing you back at your place and you had lost your phone and your wallet.
Yeah, that was
And your shoes.
Yes. That was a funny story. I got very intoxicated, and it was you and Andrew Brownson that came down. That's what it was. And I think I'm mixing stories a little bit because it's all fuzzy right now, because I'm thinking I'm mixing like 2 different weekends or something. But one time, you and Andrew Brownson came down, and I got very drunk, and I ended up coming home losing everybody.
Yeah.
And also with it losing my pants and my shoes.
You didn't have pants either, I remember.
I lost my pants, my shoes, my phone.
And you had gone through a sprinkler.
And I had gone through a sprinkler, and I had mud all over my shirt.
Right.
The one thing I did have was my watch. I was very happy that I had recovered
Priorities.
that. But yeah, I remember waking up the next morning and having lost a lot of things, and I was very upset.
Understandably so.
Never got my phone back, but I did get my wallet and my pants back.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I put out on Facebook, hey, lost some stuff last night. If anyone knows anything, please message me or whatever. And this girl had found my wallet, and it had my student ID in it. And so she found me on Facebook and messaged me and was like, hey, I have your pants, and it also had your wallet in it, so.
Where did you leave them? How did you lose your pants? Do you have any recollection?
None. It was the first time I've ever like blacked out like that. And it was a very scary moment for me, because I was just like woke up and I had no idea. It was like The Hangover. You know, like they're like retracing their steps, like, what happened last night? And but there were some very funny videos that you and Connor took of me that night.
Right, because Connor had a feeder mouse for his snake that the snake wouldn't eat. So he just had this mouse that you guys named Scout?
Yeah,
Scout?
It was because these girls played a prank on us. They bought mice at the pet store and like released them in our room to be funny, and then we just kept them as pets. So that's
you were
how
talking about how much you loved the mouse.
Yeah, Scout. I confessed my love for Scout.
But let's be clear here. It's not like he was being silly. He was so drunk that he had undying love for everything, and he saw the mouse and was like, well, shit, I got to tell you all how I feel about this mouse. Have you ever seen such a mouse?
It was pretty hilarious. I'm pretty sure I said that I wanted to have sex with the mouse at one point, which don't know how that would have gone down. Don't know how that would have gone down, but that happened. But I digress.
Yeah.
Some crazy college memories.
Long story short.
From my short stint in college.
Yeah, most of my crazy stories were down there with you guys.
GCSU is pretty fun, man.
Yeah, because I went back to KSU and we just kind of sat in our dorms and did nothing.
Yeah, KSU is kind of depressing.
It really was, my time there.
Yeah, I bet.
That said, I wrote a lot of songs there because, I mean, all I did was I'd wake up, I'd go to class most of the time, I'd come back, I'd write songs, play guitar in my room, and do nothing at all. And wait for the weekend to see you guys.
Yeah, seriously. And I also remember one time we came to a bonfire up here in this area with Connor, and I remember...
Taylor Mears.
Oh, yeah.
That's when I met Taylor.
Yeah.
He and I still keep in touch.
Yes. That's awesome, dude. Yeah, Taylor. Shout out to Taylor. He's probably listening to this right now. Talked to him earlier today, actually. But I remember that was like one of the first times I like heard you play too. Like I'd heard Connor Sova was like always bragging about you. He's like, dude, my friend's on American Idol, like all this stuff, and like showing us songs and like showing recordings of you.
He's a good hype man.
What'd you say?
He's a great hype man.
Oh yeah, he's a totally great hype man for sure. So then by the time I like actually heard you play in real life, I was like, damn, yeah, Alex is amazing. Like
Thanks,
Alex
man.
is really good.
Thank you.
And I was just like, shit, like I've never really known anybody that was a musician that I actually thought was awesome. Like I was just like, like I had met, some of my friends were musicians growing up, played the guitar, but I was just like, okay, they're good. But I take it back. I knew a lot of guitarists that were really good, but they also couldn't, they didn't have the singing as well.
Not a lot of guys pursue singing.
Yeah.
Because
I
think that until you crack, I don't know if it's a skill level or whatever, it's thought of as effeminate until it isn't.
And maybe it's the puberty thing too. Like when girls are young, they can sing and it's cute and like they have high pitched voices. But when a guy is young and he's singing, you sound like a girl.
Singing isn't badass until you hit a certain point.
Yeah, until you get that.
I hope it is
voice.
now.
Yeah, it's definitely badass now. Because there's always like, when I look at a musician, not necessarily you, but like if I see someone up on stage and they're just like commanding the crowd, not saying, well, when you're doing it, I don't think this, but also you're my friend, so I know who you are on a personal level. But like sometimes there's just like this weird immortal thing you see. Like when someone's on stage and they're like commanding a crowd and they're killing it.
They're no longer
like,
human.
Yeah, exactly. And when someone can do that, like I can understand why girls freak out and like fall in love with the guy on stage.
Fall in love. Like, I've got so many male crushes that are just where I'm like, I would marry that guy's voice. I would do it.
To name a couple, who would you marry?
Alan Stone, it's not even a question.
Alan Stone, for sure.
Alan Stone.
He's amazing.
I hope he never hears this because a friend of mine that I met at a festival, the 30A Songwriter Festival down in Florida, I played a show with this guy named Stephen Kellogg, phenomenal songwriter. He and I got talking and he was like, you know who you remind me of? A buddy of mine, doesn't matter. And kind of just lost that point, and we circled back around in the conversation. He's like, so my friend Alan Stone. I was like, hold on. You mean to tell me you know Alan Stone? He's like, yeah, we played Red Rocks together. And of course, I fangirled pretty hard. And I sat there like, well, can you like, can you tell him about, could I, you know him? And I'm like freaking out. I'm actually sweating for this because I admire the guy's music so much. Well, he put us in contact. And I emailed Alan and was like, hey man, could I ask you for some advice? And he hit me back and was like, sure thing, peace, love, brother. And I was like, he's exactly what I hoped for. So not only is his voice amazing, he ended up being super nice and helpful as well. So yeah, I stand by my comment.
That's
I
really
would marry
cool.
that man's voice.
Have you met him in person?
I have yet to.
Oh, damn. But you've like chatted with him and...
Very briefly.
Gotcha. Dude, his lyrics...
Very briefly.
His songwriting ability is amazing. As far as like his lyrics.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Like, there's not very many... Like, I'm, I have a weird relationship with music, I feel like, because a lot of times I'm listening to music as a background thing. Mm-hmm. Like, I love listening to music when I'm working out, all that kind of stuff. And then I also really love going to, like, music festivals. But you know me, I'm, like, really into, like, the electronic stuff. And that doesn't have as much words. It's more about, like...
I think there are, like, two sides of music that are almost, like, as different as painting and music. You're
right.
One is, it is a soundtrack for life. And the other is something that you go and appreciate on its own. It's its own thing.
Very true. That's a good way of putting it. Like, one is like something that you're admiring as this piece, and one is, like you said, soundtrack of life.
One is like is its own independent art. The other one is
like a painting versus a play or something. Like, they're
exactly.
totally
One's
different.
immersive on its own. The other is enhancing something else, or gives you a reason to go be communal.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, that's so true. And I feel like with Alan Stone, when you listen to his music, like you can't help but to just be like sucked into what he's actually singing.
He's captivating.
He really is. I've never seen him live, but he's awesome.
I saw him twice. Before I saw him live, I was dating another musician. We went to Bonnaroo. We missed his show, right? I had never heard of him. And she's like, we have to go. And so I was like, I don't really care. I don't know who this guy is.
Damn.
So we went and got a hot dog instead, right? Like around the time that his show would have ended, we saw something
Hot dog,
else.
Alan Stone, I don't know.
Alan Stone's in the line. And I still don't know who he is. She's like, oh my God, that's Alan Stone. So I'm thinking, okay, oh, that's the guy you're talking about? I don't care. She was so shy, she wanted to meet him. So I walk up and I tapped him on the shoulder. I'm like, hey man, my girlfriend, she walked away. She's so shy. Okay, so I go find her, bring the two together, get pictures. He and I ended up chatting about, actually what we chatted about is being stoned into music festivals together. And he was just telling me, sorry for being so quiet in conversation, I'm super stoned right now. And then we went on our merry way.
Alan Stoned.
Right?
So that's hilarious. So you have met him in person, but it was before you were a fan.
But it wasn't in a musical setting.
That's hilarious.
Darwin, you awkward animal.
What's up, Darwin? We
Darwin,
got Darwin
my
the dog here.
Hey, puppy.
If you want to follow Darwin on Instagram,
He has his own hashtag.
yes, hashtag Darwin the dog. Go look at him. He's a cutie pie. But so what were we talking about before Alan Stone? We were talking about marrying people's voices and all that stuff.
Right.
But
Guys that command the stage.
yes, guys that command the stage. Good callback. And basically, like, have you ever seen? Oh my gosh, I feel really bad blanking on this band. It'll come to me later. I saw Box, something with Box. Boxcar, Box.
Shadowboxers?
The Shadowboxers.
I played with their drummer a few times.
Really?
And
I went and saw
asked him to join the band, and he said no. I started with this other band called the Shadowboxers. I think it's going places.
It is.
He made the right call at the time.
Dude, I went and saw the Shadowboxers like a few months ago. That was an example of like a dude that controls the stage. Like they put on a show. They really reminded me a little bit of like Justin Timberlake, and I think Justin Timberlake has like shouted them out on Instagram and
Not
stuff
only
like that.
he's got up and played with them on stage.
Really?
So they did a cover of his song. It had like 700 views the day of, which I thought, wow, they got 700 views in like 5 hours after they posted it when I saw it. And the next morning,
on Instagram or
on YouTube.
Wow.
The next morning I went to go show, I think my mom, honestly, like at like 11 a.m. and it had like 60,000 views. I'm like, what happened? So I went to my buddy's page who plays the drums for them. And turns out Justin Timberlake tweeted and said, this is the best cover of any of my songs that have ever been done, which is good. It's a good endorsement.
Yeah.
So they went and they have several 100,000 views from that. And then every single time they'd post something, Justin Timberlake would be like, this is my favorite band. Listen to their new song.
Wow.
Just out of the kindness of his heart. And
That's
then
really cool.
they played at a place in Nashville, and I saw the video. He just hops on stage and he's like, can I sing one with you guys?
No.
Sit down, sir.
Sit down, JT. Let us have our moment here. That's so funny, man. That's really cool. Yeah. Again, shout out to Taylor Mears, because he was actually the one who showed me the Shadowboxers and Alan Stone. So he's got good taste, for sure. But yeah, Shadowboxers were like another example of where I was in the crowd, like watching this. I'm like, yeah, I can definitely tell why girls are freaking out about these guys, because it was awesome.
Why limit it to girls? People freak out about these guys.
Very true. I mean, I'm not even the hugest fan of them. I just literally, I just happened to get tickets for it, and I was like,
you can't help but just be like, holy shit, what is going on in front of me?
Yeah, it was a show.
Where did you see the Shadowboxers?
Variety
Playhouse,
maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what it was. I'd never been there before. It was the first time I'd been there.
It's a cool spot.
What part of town is that in again?
That's over, I think it's in Midtown.
Yeah, I think that's where it was. Variety Playhouse. That sounds right. I'd never been there before, and that was it was really great. But yeah, like there's something where, like you said, when you're young and you start singing as a guy, can be kind of feminine, and then somewhere along the line there's that transition.
A lot of guys are embarrassed to try it.
Yeah, like for me, like I'm kind of embarrassed to try singing. I know I don't suck by any means, but like if I had to sing in front of people, I'd be kind of freaking out. But if I had to speak in front of a whole bunch of people, I'd be fine.
Right. Well, I think it's like dancing. Anything that you're putting yourself on display in front of a group of people, if you don't have a little bit of innate talent to start with, it's hard to break into it. Like, I'm a terrible dancer. If I don't have a guitar in front of me on stage, I cannot be on stage.
Like if you just had to sing.
I've had to do it, and I don't know where to put my hands.
For American Idol, did you have to just sing?
Yeah, and that's probably why I didn't go on. I sat there stiff as a board, like, I don't know what to do with my hands. Where do they go? Fast forward to a time when I just decided to hop up with another band like a year ago. And I'm thinking, by now I'm probably fine. And I stood up there and like I had my hands in my pockets and I was leaned over awkwardly because the microphone wouldn't go high enough. So there I am hunched over with my hands in my pockets, not moving at all. I watched the video and could not stand to even stare at it for a second. I was the most awkward thing that's ever been. The guitar is such a crutch.
For sure. No, and it's funny because a lot of times you don't see guys just up there singing.
No, and more power to them.
A lot of times it's like the girls are standing there singing by themselves and then the guy always has a guitar or something.
Yeah.
And I can't even imagine not even having a mic stand, like just having the mouthpiece.
I don't know what to do about it.
That would be terrifying.
Yeah.
You don't even have anything to hold on to or like.
I would turn down singing with other bands to avoid the embarrassment of having to sit up there without a guitar.
I can't even think about what I would do if I was in that situation. I'd probably be the same, just like standing there awkwardly or like trying to somewhat move around the stage. But
like, what are you gonna do? Hands in pockets or jazz hands? Those are my only options.
I feel like you really have to sell it. Like if you're gonna be in there, you gotta go like all out.
Yeah. But then again, I just don't even know what selling it would be. Like, there's that just gap in my knowledge on how to move my body above my waist. I'm comfortable because I got my hands playing music. Mm-hmm. They move on tempo, but then I incorporate the knees, and like I can either like oompa loompa up and down it, or I can just lock knee it. I love that you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the Oompa Loompa
I'm thinking
thing,
of
just like
the Lollipop Guild.
Yes, totally.
That's how
like
I
just
feel.
going up and down, bobbing up and down like a little spring.
Exactly.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I definitely have seen some awkward dudes on stage, but more power to any guy that can sing. More power to anyone that can go up on stage and just sing, because that's hard to do. So like. You said you went on American Idol. My cousin tried out for American Idol, so I kind of remember like the process of that. But like for people that, you know, they've only seen the show.
Right.
How different is like that tryout period versus like the actual show?
I drove to New Orleans from the first round. I got there at 6 a.m., 5 a.m., whatever it was. Waited in line until like 4 p.m. Sang for 10 seconds. They have like. We were in their hockey arena, and they set up like 15 booths in the very bottom. They have all the seats taken up from people who are auditioning. So, 10, 15,000 people.
So what did Simon say? I'm just kidding.
They don't even have anybody
They're not even there.
They just have random people.
Is there like one person watching you?
It's 2 people, I believe.
And isn't there like a little lineup?
Yeah, so like this whole thing, they call you down by section. You get like a full-on ticket like you're at a sporting event that tells you your seat, and they call it by row. And they'll have like kind of like a on deck, go down there, now you're waiting to get called up, and they send you to a booth. It's like a cubicle. You get up there, you sing about 10 or 15 seconds. Sometimes they'll ask you to sing 20, but they make it different. They make a big deal about, hey, they could ask you to sing 20, and you're like, that's about the same amount of time. They're like, no. Most people get shut up before then. So it's pretty just cut and dry, cutthroat. I made it through that round. I was elated.
What did you sing?
I sang Ain't Too Proud to Beg by the Temptations.
I don't think I know.
I know you wanna leave me.
I think I've heard that song.
Ain't too proud to be.
Stop.
No.
That's your 10 seconds.
Exactly, right? So,
but that's exactly how it was, right?
Really
like,
so, and like everybody, you think
is
they
it really
hate
noisy in there? Like, can they even hear you? Really?
Barely. You got a whole arena of people. So they send you through to this other line. You get some more paperwork. And they say, cool, we'll see you in like 6 weeks. Come back. So I drive back with my family. To this time, I think we were in Biloxi. And I did a first round of that day, made it through, came back later that day to my third round. This time was the big round, right? I thought it was for the TV judges. No, they take some people and put them to the TV judges. Other ones they put to the executive producers with the cameras and everything normal. They never air it. They just want to see how you'll handle it on air. And I got 2 yeses. And then Nigel, I don't know his last name, but he's one of the producers of the show. I think he's also a judge on America's Got Talent, or no, Britain's Got Talent. And wasn't the friendliest guy I've ever met, because I had 2 yeses. I didn't need his approval. I was on the show. Yay, I did it. And he convinced one of the other people to change their yes to a no, because he was like, this guy doesn't have any soul. It's not authentic. He's trying too hard. And so I thought I'd be cute. I took off my shoe and said, look, I brought extra soul. And he told me I wasn't cute or funny and told me to stop. And like, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Then the other guy who was in there went, yeah, after that I'm gonna have to change it to a no. Have a good one.
Oh no.
So I went home, 8-hour drive home, and then had to come to grips with the fact that, oh crap, I did all that and I missed my finals today. I really screwed that up.
Yeah, so you were
but I'm thankful that happened.
Yeah, that's really awesome, man. That's you got to kind of do that do or die thing.
Yeah, it forced my hand.
Exactly.
From then on, I just kind of came to grips with the reality of.
Did you ever try to do the TV show thing again? Did you ever do like The Voice or anything?
The Voice contacted me. So what you don't see. Let me make sure this isn't violating anything I've signed. Okay.
The Voice, if you're listening to this, just turn it off. It's okay.
I'm just going back through all my stuff. I can say this. So, in addition to having the open auditions, which thousands of people show up, it's a lot of the same that I went through with American Idol. They also will contact other people. They contacted me as well as a handful of other musicians that I know personally, and we all showed up to a private audition, and there were like 20 of us in a room, and we're like, no way, you guys got the call too? What?
Because you weren't allowed to tell, or?
Yeah, well, we just got called. They're like, can you be here tomorrow?
And you don't want to go on Facebook and brag about it if you haven't even made it.
You're not allowed to go and talk about it on Facebook.
Gotcha.
They tell you right off the bat. You haven't signed anything yet, but they're like, hey, don't make a deal about it.
Because if you do, we're going to call it off.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
So I go on, and it's like a 30-minute in-person interview, or a person-to-person interview where they hear about your whole life story.
Because they want to make it TV-worthy.
Exactly. Then you go in and you sing a handful of songs. With that, it's a lot more personal. So
what did they want to hear about?
They asked me about any like silly talents I had, weird interests, any other instruments I played. They wanted to hear about the worst thing that's ever happened to me, the best thing that's ever happened to me, everything in between, embarrassing stories, anything they could have.
They're just trying to find something that'll sell more ratings or whatever.
So,
because they don't care about if you can sing.
You have that's the underlying. You have to sing, and then the deciding factor are the other things.
Because it's funny because The Voice, their whole thing is like, oh, we have blind auditions.
But I have to give it to, the blind auditions, so I was auditioning to go on the blind auditions.
Makes sense. But it makes you seem like,
It's just that's the first
nothing
thing.
else matters, just The Voice matters.
There's like a whole month just leading up to the blind auditions where people will go out to LA and practice with the bands to get ready for the blind auditions. So I was going to do it this year as well. I told them no a few years ago because I saw the contract and I was in the middle of recording an album and it was just too much to take on.
Yeah, because when you win, don't they get the rights to like all your next albums or something crazy?
It's not as bad as American Idol, but they have the option to take up to 85% of your income, if I remember correctly, for up to 7 years at their discretion, and you waive your right to third-party arbitration. So
what does that exactly mean, the third-party arbitration?
So you can't even say, I disagree with this is unfair. You acknowledge in advance that I will not argue this. I'm telling you now, even if I have a problem with it, I waive my right to tell you I have a problem with it.
Whew.
And third-party arbitration means that they'd have somebody else come in independent of the situation and try to deliberate on it, right?
I see.
So
it's heavy.
Yeah, it's a lot to give up. But this year came around, and after the whole commercial thing, Jennifer Hudson was a judge in the Britain version.
Yeah.
And so she was like, hey, you need to do the show, you need to do the show. Little did I know, she was saying that because she's a judge on this season in the United States. So she was trying to give me the show while she was a judge, which would have been cool.
Did she want you to like, because she wanted you to be her...
Well, she wanted me on the show. If she was my judge that's neither here nor there, she'd just, we kind of hit it off and she was trying to give me advice. And she was like, do the shows, they're awesome. But then I went back and looked at the contract and it was worse than before.
Wow.
So I had to turn it down.
Huh. So we kind of you brought up Jennifer Hudson and all that. So when did that whole thing happen?
I was on my way to go to band practice at my drummer's house when somebody tagged me on Facebook that there was an open casting call for some vague live event. It said that they were just doing like an afternoon kind of, I thought it was just going to be like a gig at maybe a hotel. Who knows? It didn't have any information. So they needed somebody who was in their early 20s and a soul singer. I sent in my like 20-second audition tape, got an email back while I was at band practice, and they're like, hey, can you come in a couple days? So I went in, sang a song they asked me to prepare, came back a couple days later, got a call back after that, went in and auditioned for the producers of what ended up being a commercial. I still did not know. So got my call back. They said,
what did you think you were auditioning for?
I really didn't know. I kept on asking questions, and they had to, the casting agent as well as the producers of the commercial, they had to sign a non-disclosure.
So what did they say to you? They're just like, we can't tell you?
Yeah, they said it's just some outdoor event. We'll see you on Thursday.
Huh.
I was like, all right. Nothing more. They're like, can't tell you anything else.
Huh.
Show up on Thursday. We'll see you there. So went through my fitting. They just gave me, clothes that looked like what I would normally wear, but without any logos. So once they did that, I was like, it's got to be on TV. They wouldn't care what my clothing would be otherwise.
Yeah.
So I show up to set, and they're like, there's your trailer. There's your security detail. There's your assistant, hair and makeup, which for you is really just makeup. And and we'll see you on set in a few minutes. And I'm like, what do you mean on set? And they're like, for the commercial. I was like, nobody's filled me in for what commercial? And so then they're looking around like, oh, crap, have they said something they're not supposed to say? And they're like, well, the American Family Insurance commercial, did nobody tell you? It's like, I have been trying to find out for a week. What is up? So I show up on set, we record the song for like 4 hours. I assumed that I was just gonna be some background part of the commercial.
So for people who haven't seen the commercial, so you're like in a park kind of,
right? Woodruff Park, actually.
What is it?
Woodruff Park, downtown.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So you're like in a park and you're just like playing by yourself, right? With your guitar.
Playing music, and then Jennifer Hudson walks up and sings, and we have a duet.
So did you know that Jennifer Hudson was there?
I had no idea.
So in the commercial, the moment that you see Jennifer Hudson was an actual surprise, or was that staged?
That's my real reaction.
Really?
Which I was worried it was going to look ridiculous because, all right, so we'll back up just a little bit. So we had been filming for 4 hours. I assumed that I was going to be some background part of the commercial where they'd have somebody just B-roll, and then somebody else would come on with a voiceover like, with American Family Insurance, and that would be it, right? So 4 hours into filming, they tell me, hey, Alex, we're going to do the whole song all the way through, try to just do a perfect take. We're going to have different camera angles, so no matter what, don't stop. Do not stop. No matter what happens, don't stop. Also, don't fucking stop. Don't stop. And so I'm like, I get it. I get it, guys.
Were you assuming
Chill.
that something weird was going to happen?
No. Yes. I didn't think it would be this. What I thought it was going to be is just new camera angles coming in, and they were just irritated. They would be irritated if I were to cause the whole production to have to reset.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Because it's like, a handful of cameras. It's 30-person
operation.
Yeah, it's a huge deal that's going on.
Yeah, there's like 30 people. You've got security. You've got your own trailer. Like this isn't like
it's
some kind of small operation.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
dark one, buddy. Sorry about the dog.
It's all good. We've got a dog break.
So yeah, this new take comes around, and out of the corner of my eye, I see somebody walking towards me, and I think it's an extra who's coming like, I don't know, in my vicinity. So I turn and look at her, and my first thought was that extra looks an awful lot like Jennifer Hudson if Jennifer Hudson had shorter hair. And then I turned back to the cameras, and like kind of everything clicked right then. Like, okay, they made a big deal about this take. She looks like Jennifer Hudson. Jennifer Hudson's a spokesperson for this company. Oh shit, I'm on camera.
This is Jennifer Hudson.
And everything just clicked right then and there, and I blushed and choked on my words and kept playing like they asked. But yeah, that was quite the surprise.
That's so awesome, dude.
I have found a new hobby in going to the American Family Insurance Facebook page where they posted the video, and I find all the comments where people say it's staged, that guy totally knew. she was going to be there. People get so upset on Facebook over the stupidest stuff about a commercial.
That guy fucking knew, dude. What a fucking fake, dude.
Those guys. Well, I have fun now that I've changed my last name to my middle name on Facebook so that people can't search my name anymore. I can go in looking like a completely different person and just be like, no, I think that it was real. And then they'll comment back all angrily, no, it's so staged, this is such bullshit. And I get to comment back, I have it on good authority that this guy probably did not know that she was showing up. And it's kind of a new hobby for me.
That's hilarious, just messing with the trolls.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's so funny.
With relative anonymity,
Yeah. So is that commercial being aired like nationwide or like just in Atlanta, or what's the deal?
Originally it was going to be, I think, 22 states. And now they've extended it to markets that they don't even have insurance presence in.
Wow.
So, I don't know what the reason for that is. Could be that they're moving to new markets. I have no idea.
Could be that the commercial's really awesome and it's got a lot of traction.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Dude, that's really cool, man. Like, so for me, when I saw the thing on Facebook, to be honest, I'm not the biggest Jennifer Hudson fan, so I didn't even really. I knew she was, and I knew she was super famous.
Right.
But the funny thing is like, if she came up to me while I was singing, I actually probably wouldn't even know who she was. How terrible would it have been if you didn't know who she was?
They made sure I knew.
Okay.
So they called me before I got the part, and they went, hey, so we liked your audition. Who are your biggest influences? And I started naming off a bunch of people, and they went, okay, so a lot of soul. Like, my favorite in the same genre is like Jennifer Hudson. What do you think of Jennifer Hudson? It's like, oh, I think she's awesome. She's such a great vocalist. So much talent, so much soul, wow. And we're like, all right, have a good one.
Did you think anything weird of that?
No, because I really thought we were just having a conversation about, oh, you like that artist? I like this artist in a similar genre. And I was like, hell yeah, Jennifer Hudson. She's amazing.
That's really cool. So they made sure that you knew who Jennifer Hudson was. Okay,
yeah,
gotcha. Because that would have been a total commercial killer if you straight up just didn't know who Jennifer Hudson was, or you like had some beef with her or something.
Right?
Like, I freaking hate Jennifer Hudson. And you stop singing, you're like, why are you here?
It's like we have a long-standing history.
Yeah. Like, she didn't realize it was going to be you. She just thought it was going to be
Alex is here. And they're like, wait, what?
She's like, man, you know I can't be in a commercial with Alex Guthrie.
You did this knowing about the restraining order. I didn't know about this.
That's hilarious.
No,
so I remember like seeing the commercial and I was like, oh, that's so cool. I had no idea if it was real or staged. To be honest, I thought it was staged because you compose yourself pretty well.
Yeah, well, the reality of I'm on camera and I don't want to look like a fool. I mean, it's set in quickly.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's really cool. And she starts like singing with you basically for the rest of the commercial. It was funny because, I didn't realize how big of a commercial that was going to be. I just thought it was like, oh, that's a cool little video they put on Facebook. Idea. And like then I saw it on TV and I was like, holy shit, that's my friend Alex. Like my dad's watching TV and I'm like, that's my friend Alex. I've seen, oh my gosh. I like freaked out. And then the other day I was at the dentist. I don't listen to the radio, but the radio was playing in the background and I'm like getting my teeth cleaned. I'm like, that's my friend Alex. And they're like, what? I was like, that song, that's my friend Alex.
That's awesome.
It was pretty funny. And they were like, what? And then I told them after they were like done. I was like, yeah, that commercial, that's my friend. And they're like, oh, no way, that commercial comes on all the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, it's pretty cool.
It was a pretty lovely day.
I know somebody who's semi-famous, you know?
If you lower the bar for fame, absolutely.
And then, like I told you the other day, I was driving to the airport last weekend. I saw a giant billboard with you and Jennifer Hudson on it. So
it's super weird because I just thought I was playing at like a hotel lobby.
That's so crazy, man. That's really cool, though. Do people like recognize you now that you've been on the commercials? Have you had anyone like, hey,
I did not expect that, but yeah, like I played some shows in Chicago just a few weeks back. And like I showed up to the rental car counter, and the chick looked at me and kind of gave me a weird look, and then I handed her my card, and she like read my name on the card, and she went, "Are you the guy from the commercial?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's me." And then
that's cool. Did you want to like take a picture or anything, or was you just like, "That's cool"?
Like when I was at the airport heading out, they have a print ad in the airport, like I think next to one of the sliding walkways, and so I was sitting there like just standing on the automatic walkway. And I'm passing the big picture of myself, and then somebody in the opposite direction looked and like pointed and went, "Wait, what?" And there'd be like a lot of weird little things like that. Nobody ever walks up and is like, "It's that guy." But a lot of people go, "Are you the guy from the commercial?"
That's funny, man.
Yeah, it's been unexpected, and it's definitely fun. I think twice about doing anything now.
Yeah.
I feel like I've always got to have a smile on, make sure that I look friendly.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. I talked about that. I think it was episode 19. It hasn't come out yet, but with my friend Cameron, she was a celebrity stylist for a little while in LA.
Yeah.
And we were talking about how celebrities can just be such assholes and expect everyone to just be, I don't know, if people come up to them, it's like, why is this person coming up to me? And rather than hey, so nice to meet you, thanks so much, let's take a picture.
My entire fame is based on you liking me, so thank you for making sure that I have a job continued.
Thank you for pointing that out, because literally, that's what it is. And some people almost look at it as a nuisance, these people coming up to me, peasants.
It's something that you have to think about, I'm sure. But
Totally.
Jennifer Hudson, I've got to say, important to note, one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life.
That's awesome, man.
I mean, she immediately just wanted to have a conversation, just another human being, person with a great heart. She and I have kind of become pals after all this.
That's really, really cool, man.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure, the commercials are pretty, like I said, I've seen it a lot of places, and I don't even really watch TV or pay much attention to that.
I don't watch
stuff.
TV ever, and I get Snapchats daily about it, which
That's
is so
crazy.
cool. It's I have a feeling that I'm going to be the guy from that commercial for the rest of my life. And
I don't know, man. I feel like
I hope that I go further than that.
I was gonna say,
saying.
I think you're gonna go past that, man, for sure.
But yeah, the night that it aired, Jennifer called me, and she was like, "Hey, now that the commercial's out, if you start getting recognized places, I know it can be stressful. I've been through it. I know it's a whole new experience that you've just never had an opportunity to experience. So if you're ever stressed out through it all, or you just need somebody who's been there to talk to, just hit me up."
That's so cool, man.
She's just a great person.
That's really, really awesome. I feel like, I've looked through her Instagram a little bit since being on that commercial, just to kind of see what she's like and stuff, because I really don't know. Didn't she get originally famous from American Idol?
Yeah, I think she was number 4 or 6 on the show.
Yeah, because I remember back in the day when American Idol was in its heyday,
right.
My parents watched it and stuff, mainly my dad, but I remember he really liked Jennifer Hudson. So
she's so soulful.
Yeah, she's great. She's
oh my
amazingly
gosh.
talented, for sure. But yeah, looking through her Instagram and stuff, seems like she's really genuine, down to earth. Doesn't
She
seem
is.
Like she's...
Yeah, everybody that I met that has had any interaction with her, the first thing they say, they don't even mention the music. It's just, oh, Jennifer Hudson, she's incredible. She's so sweet.
Yeah, and you don't really even think about the ROI of just being a nice person.
Yeah, it goes a long way.
It totally does. Because right now we're sitting on this podcast, who knows? A lot, the numbers of my podcast have actually been pretty awesome.
I've been looking at it.
I'm pleasantly surprised
That's
at how
awesome.
many people are listening. And so a few hundred people over the next couple of days are going to know oh, wow, that's really cool. I'm glad to know that Jennifer Hudson is a great person, I
know.
Because that's the cool thing about podcasts is you're not being paid to say that. I'm not being paid to say that. Even though you were in a commercial with her, you could tell the honest truth. You probably didn't have to sign a non-disclosure saying that she was a shitty human being if you wanted to.
I could say whatever I want.
Exactly.
It's at my own volition that I'm deciding to speak positively of her.
And that's so cool because, like I said, I was on that. I did that podcast with my friend where she was saying oh, Kate Beckinsale, she was a total asshole or whatever. And
that's a bummer.
Was just and it was what's so crazy is she would not have thought twice about being a bitch to you because you were just the stylist that was off to the side and wasn't supposed to talk to her.
Now you have a platform.
But now she's got a platform on my podcast because she's my friend.
Right.
And now a few hundred people know that she's a jerk.
Well, I think that speaks to just a larger truth of life.
Totally.
Whether or not there's a camera on you, whether or not somebody's listening, people worry about whether or not your phones are listening to you or whatever. It doesn't matter. Anybody who you've ever had an interaction with is a camera.
Totally.
They're recording how you react, and they're going to retell that. So I think that it's important to take that as a lesson. That no matter what you do, camera or not, around a recorder or not, if there's anything else that could possibly retell what you just did or what you just said, it will be retold. Mm-hmm. So just be a good person.
It's very true. Just be a good person. And the crazy thing about being a good person is that it's absolutely free. Mm-hmm. It doesn't cost any money.
No, it makes you wealth, not necessarily monetary wealth, but
Very,
your life's a
very
whole
true.
lot better.
Very, very true.
Connor Peterson, a guy that you just recently had on the podcast.
Yeah.
Great podcast.
Yes.
Yeah, he and I we went through breakups at a similar time, and we had the cliche, we need to make ourselves better kind of talk, and just sat down and we each wrote out our own separate goals, which a lot of them overlapped. And of that, it was just be a nice person without any return on the expectation of being a nice person.
That's so awesome, man. Because, like, I mean, whether you believe in God, whether you believe in karma, whether you don't believe in anything, you can obviously see just in this example that I just gave how being a nice person, whether you might not see that being paid back instantly, you might not be seeing it paid back in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, but somewhere someone is acknowledging what you're doing, you know?
And I think that to go even a level deeper on that,
for sure,
is you should do it without the expectation of ever being paid back. You know, because that's the only time that you're going to actually get the enjoyment out of it.
Very, very true, man. I think a lot of people that a lot of times they are negative or they don't think like that. They're only doing good things to expect something.
Or they do something good so they can post about it on Facebook.
That's a big problem nowadays, for sure.
Yeah, it's pseudo philanthropy. It's not
like,
real.
Like, I gave this money to this homeless guy or whatever. It's like, that's cool. But like, would you have given it to him if there was no camera? If you didn't have your phone, would you have given it? You know, whatever. And that's a silly example. But there's lots of examples like that. You know, would you go on that mission trip if you couldn't post pictures with the African kids?
That's one of my biggest problems with mission trips. I think the idea is great, but there was a mission trip, and I can't hate on the people that do them. I know that they think it's the right thing to do. And there are plenty of mission trips that don't fall into this category. But when I was in high school, there was a group of people from my high school that were going down to Costa Rica, and it happened to be that they were going to the town that my brother has lived in for 10 years nearly. And they're like, we're going to go deliver shoes to those in need. And my brother was like, they don't need shoes. Why are they bringing shoes? It's going to cost $1,000 a person to bring $20 a person worth of shoes. They came down here so they can take a picture with a slightly darker skinned kid and go, look, I helped. And it's great that that's what's in your heart, that you want to help. But if you want to help, recognize that genuinely your $1,000 plus the $20 of shoes you brought, your $1,020 goes so much further if you either donate it to a good cause, not just a nonprofit, but an actual verifiable making moves in the world nonprofit, or go down and donate your time. Your time is so much more valuable than the shoes you brought.
Totally. Agreed. I probably couldn't have said it better myself. I actually talked about this a little bit on my podcast with my friend Elizabeth. I think it was episode 8, maybe? Yeah, I think it was episode 8. And we kind of talked about how, like, long-term missions, really getting deep in with people, forming relationships, all that kind of stuff. Like you said, really investing your time more than money. That's where the real change happens. And that's where, like, real barriers are broken down.
Right.
I think that these short-term mission trips a lot of times are very silly.
Spring break mission trips.
Exactly.
It's so the kids feel like they did something.
You know, one of my friends on Facebook posted something recently saying, I see a lot of Christians or I see a lot of people, you know, saying stuff about what we're talking about, how a lot of people are going on missions to just take a picture or, you know, just for themselves. They're being selfish about it. And how dare you tell them where their heart is or tell them this. And I'm like, I don't, you know, great. If you want to do stuff, if you really want to help, great. But like you said, how much does it cost to go down there?
Yeah.
How much good are you actually doing?
Right.
How much do you actually care?
And it's not an attack on the character of the person who's going.
Exactly. And how dare I say how they feel?
There's no doubt that anybody who's willing to sacrifice that much of their money and time, they're doing it for the right reasons. But there's a difference between doing it for the right reasons for you and actually doing it, making a difference. You know, to parallel it to something that has nothing to do with this at all, and I'm not by any means comparing the two, but it's saying, you know, your grandparents get a buy on being racist because they were raised that way. No, they don't. Until they had the opportunity to recognize that they were wrong and had good reason to realize that they were wrong, they got a buy on it because that's how they were raised. But the second they are relieved of their ignorance and they still make the choice to have that same behavior, now it is them. It's that the impetus is on them to make the decision to not be racist anymore. Completely different thing. But what I'm saying is, if your heart is in the right place and you want to help people, and then somebody says, hey, it's awesome that you want to do that, your heart's in the right place, but understand that you're if that is your goal to help people, it could be better spent doing these things. And if you go, no, I'd rather go so I can take the picture of the brown kid. Now it is
now
your
it's
fault.
ignorance, and now it's on you.
Yeah, now it's on you.
Totally. Yeah. It's a very weird subject, of course, because, like you said, people want to help, but you really don't. There's better ways. But I can't even remember exactly how we got on that subject, but we were talking about being a nice person.
Right.
And like just the ROI of like being genuinely nice to people, smiling, and without the return of without the expectation of a return. One thing that I thought about recently was when you have fans, like you literally have people that are genuinely fans of your music, and like when you have a show, like they come out to see you, not because they're your friends, because like I'm your friend and I'm also your fan, like I love your music, but I'm also just like your friend, so right. I want to support you as a friend. But there's also people out there that are your fans that have like no,
I hadn't really thought about that,
like ties to you, you know what I mean? Like they're just your fans because they're like, wow, I really like this guy's music. And you know, there's people that come out to your shows that like when you announce that you have a show, like they'll come out because they really like you, and like I said, not just because they're your friend or whatever.
I hadn't thought about that, genuinely.
That's very interesting, because like I've thought about that a couple of times, like when I'm at your shows, I'm like, wow, there's like people here, like, you know, for example, like I'll be with Connor Sova or Connor Peterson, I'm like, who are those people? And they're like, I don't know, I think they just like are fans of Alex's music. And I'm like, that's crazy.
It's
like,
a weird concept.
That's so cool to think about. Like there's actually people out there that just like you for your, you know, they don't just like you for your music, they also like you as a person, but you know,
as much as they know.
Like we were kind of saying, like like you said, you only just considered that, it seems like, but
I really hadn't thought about that.
But when was the first time that there's someone at your show that you're like, wow, this person, I've seen them at a couple of my shows and I don't even really know who they are?
You know what? I think it happens so gradually that you become accustomed to it, and then the next step up is so infinitesimally small that you become accustomed to that before you even know it. And then by the end of it, you're like, oh, that's a large amount of change. I didn't even notice. And that's one of those things where I've never really sat down and thought like, X percentage of this crowd, I don't know.
Yeah.
Huh. I mean, really, until you said it right then, I had not thought about it.
That's very interesting, because I feel like obviously there's some sort of connection that led those people to be there.
Right.
What was your first like album that you released? Was it?
I released an EP.
Okay, gotcha.
Of 4 songs, I believe, in I think like October of 2013.
What was that one called?
I think it was just called the Moving On EP, just
gotcha.
Named after one of the songs. And then...
And the difference between, like, for people who have never thought about this or don't know, the difference between an EP
and is like half of an album.
It means extended preview, right?
I think extended play.
Extended play, okay, gotcha.
And then I think LP, somebody's going to correct me and be like, how dare he spread misinformation. I think it's long form play.
Gotcha.
Something
so
like
is
that.
It longer than an EP typically?
That's a full-length album. An LP is a full-length album.
Okay, so an LP is synonymous with album.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Never knew that.
So EP would normally be like what you would find on a smaller record, and then an LP is going to be like the full-size record.
I see.
That's how they got their designations.
Back in the day.
Right.
Makes sense.
So we released the 4-song EP.
And you were with your band, right? The Alex Guthrie band?
No, that was just me, and then I hired on other musicians that
Nice.
I had just known throughout the music scene, but I didn't have a band at the time. And then for the next album, I actually didn't have a band when I started it, and I just hired on musicians and then kind of built a band as I was going with that process.
Gotcha. Like, these guys are awesome. I want to keep making music with them.
Exactly. And we're almost exactly 3 years from when we released that. We released that July 1st.
And what was that album called? What was that release called?
Learned.
Lessons Learned.
Which I ended up writing a song after I named the album. Named a song after the album.
Nice. And I've listened to that album a lot, actually, because when I came to your album release party, I got a copy of it. And so I don't really listen to like CDs very much because I just like plug in my phone.
Same.
But I was like, this is Alex's album. I should like listen to it, you know? Like,
right.
I'm his friend. Like, I'm gonna listen to it. And like, seriously, it's a genuinely really good album.
You.
Like,
I appreciate that.
loved listening to it. And
Thanks,
one of my favorite songs is actually Lessons Learned. I love that song.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
Well, we needed 10 songs. Like, we set out to have 10 songs, and we went into the studio with 8. So while we were in the studio, I ended up writing a song called Hold On Me, And then while actually sitting in the studio, I was like, we need a last song. So I just sat there on a notepad while they were working on something else. The other guys were doing stuff. And I worked out a song. I was like, hey, go set up the microphones. I just want to do like a one take kind of thing. And so I sat there reading from my pad and just recorded lessons learned.
So when you're recording in a studio like that, I think a lot of people are picturing like, there's some recording spaces that are, for a band, there's like a big area and the whole band's like in one room recording, right? And then sometimes like the vocals are being recorded separately than the drums, and the drums are being recorded separately than the guitar.
There are tons of different ways to go about it.
How were you guys going about it?
What we did is we recorded the rhythm section. So the rhythm section is the drums, bass, and like the rhythm guitar. So like we all sat down in the live room, in the big room together. And then you partition it off with soundproofing so that you don't have a whole lot of it. It's called bleed.
Yep.
When you get other instruments on another track's microphones.
Know about that with these guys.
Exactly. So we partition it as best as possible, isolate things, and then we get the rhythm section down. From there, we'd go ahead and add on the other guitars, the keyboards, because we didn't have a keyboardist at the time. So those parts needed to be written after we recorded the initial parts. And then I'd do the vocals like last.
That's interesting. And like back in the day when people were recording stuff like onto tapes and whatever, like back, were they able to do that kind of thing where they
still
recorded
could
sections?
Isolate, but they did a lot more live tracking. So
Gotcha.
This next one that we're doing, we're going to do almost entirely live track.
Because it just feels more organic.
Yeah, and at the time, like I said, I was just figuring out how to play with the band. I still was so uncomfortable with the idea of it because I'm just an acoustic player. And so now that I've been playing with the band for 3 years, now we're tight, we can get through it. So I think what we're going to do is do as closely a complete take.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like also, you're the Alex Guthrie band, and you're the type of person that would never let that get to your head, that you're like, I'm Alex Guthrie and this is the band. No, we're all together like the Alex Guthrie band, which is cool. When did you decide to go with that name? Because I know some people would be kind of like, I don't know if I want my name on it. But at the same time, you were writing the songs, right?
So I wrote all the songs on the first album.
Okay, so it's kind of like the Alex Guthrie band kind of makes sense because you're writing all the songs and you've got your band that's playing.
And I write all the songs for the bands, but now, as opposed to me writing them and saying, you guys figure out what you want to do around this. Like yesterday, we had an 8-hour practice where we finally finished a song. We're about to record this one. By the way, if you want to come and hang out in the studio, you're more than welcome to. It's a really fun experience.
That would actually be really fun. I've never been like in a live studio before.
Yeah, it's awesome. They've got all the platinum records on the walls.
Where do you, well, maybe you don't want to announce this on the podcast.
We have a few places in mind, but no, we should talk about that after.
Yeah, sounds good. Because I've actually I have some other friends that are in like the music space, so I've been to like a couple of studios before, but I've never like been in a studio while a band is like live recording.
It's so much fun.
Really
it's
fun.
one of my favorite things in the whole world.
I'm sure that environment is awesome. It's
cool. Amazing. And we're going to fly out a guy from LA who's worked with Bruno Mars, Childish Gambino, and Tribe Called Quest. He got his 3 Grammys, I think.
Wow, that's really cool. And so what's he going to help with?
He's going to produce it.
Nice. So for people that aren't familiar with music production, like the producer is the guy that's like putting it all together at the end, right?
So he'll say, hey guys, I think that you should cut out that one little thing there and do this a little bit differently. He's sitting there conducting it, trying to listen to it as a whole and pick out what parts need to come up.
So he's mixing it too.
He's directing what needs to happen.
Gotcha.
There's an engineer who will sit there and actually get all the levels in there just right. He'll be the guy who's making sure that things are recorded properly. And then the producer will make sure it's more arranged the way it should be arranged.
Gotcha.
Making sure that you hear a little horn part that goes "bididididid" on that one little spot. Some engineer or some producer walked in and said, it needs that and that 2-second window right there.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Yeah. That's really cool. Yeah, because I feel like a lot of people are just so distant from the music production side. They think like, this is a song. This one guy wrote it. And like, they have no idea how many...
I can't say enough good things about my band. Like, they all have awesome ideas. It's a democracy. Like, we sat in the studio yesterday. My drummer has a really badass basement studio and practice room. And so we all sat there. We had this song that was like 60%, 70% complete. And we played through it. And then our bassist is so cut and dry. He's like, I don't like that. Don't do that. But, there's not any bad blood ever with it. It's nice to have somebody who's concise with what they want, because he's got a great ear for music. He's a phenomenal musician. So he sits there and he's like, that sucks, don't do that again, do this instead. Then we'll all sit there and go, I like what you said, but maybe we meet in the middle here. And so we got this just cool environment where we all speak our minds, and then somewhere the average of all those is the right thing.
That's really, really cool. Yeah, I feel like that's a healthy environment to create stuff.
Oh, it's awesome.
Because the weird thing, this is what I've equated the podcast to a little bit as well, because I think the weird thing about especially electronic music is there is no instruments, there is no band, it's just you.
Right.
Like, you're in the studio, you're using the keyboard, you're using whatever, all these tools to make a song, and you're the producer, you're the mixer, you're mastering it. You're doing everything by yourself, which is crazy, and it's really futuristic, because that wasn't ever possible for the modern day computer.
No,
really.
for $200 you can be a badass.
Yeah, which is crazy to think about. Obviously, it takes a lot of talent to be good.
Yeah, let's not.
But the barrier to entry is very, very low.
Exactly.
And like, now you literally have virtually access to every synthesized instrument on planet Earth.
It's ever been made.
Even sounds that have never even been created.
And then you can make your own sounds that have never been heard before.
Yeah, and then you can take a clip of someone's vocal and twist that and mix that and mash it all up or whatever and make that into some weird synth that no one's ever heard that sound before. And it's just crazy, even just watching someone try to figure out all that, because it's like you said, it's really intimidating, and it's like really, really challenging to do that all by yourself. But I think, like you said, there's two different sides of the music world. There's like that side of the world that's like the one guy sitting in the studio making the whole thing, and then there's this other side that's like a collaborative effort between a whole bunch of people, and that's a beautiful thing in its own way.
And that's why earlier on in the conversation, I think there should be a distinction made between what the two are. You know, they're both music,
for sure,
but their purposes are so different and their approaches are so different that I think that you're kind of clouding things by calling them the same thing.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's like saying art. Like, art is so subjective, it could encompass so many things. You could be talking
I know an artist. Well, what are they? A painter? Are they a sculptor? Are they a musician?
Are they a tattoo artist? Are
photographer?
Yeah, exactly. So it's, like you said, it's kind of disingenuous to even just say, like,
I know a business person. Okay, is he an investor? Is he an accountant? Like, everything is business.
Yeah.
What does he do in business?
Exactly. Does he make money? Okay, cool. He's in business. We're in business right now. But I was going to say, the weird thing about this podcast that's actually really cool is I feel like a lot of times when you're a musician or you're creating something or you're a photographer or whatever, you're like putting out a piece of content that like you've made, and you're like, okay, people, like, look at this or watch this or respond to this or whatever. And you want people to like look at it or whatever. And the cool thing about this podcast that I've found, and I didn't really think about this right off the bat, is that, for example, I'm going to put this podcast out with me and you have your audience of friends and fans that want to know more about you and hear this and whatever. So they're going to be listening to this. And then I also have my group of friends and fans that are going to listen to it. And when I'm sitting at home on the computer editing this and throwing it all together and making it sound good, it's not like, oh man, I'm creating this by myself, I hope it's good enough. It's like, oh, this is cool because
it's a shared experience.
Yeah, we like made this together, and then when I re-listen to it, I'm like thinking the same things that I thought, and then I'm like, oh, that was cool how he said that, or it's like different things. And it's weird because I think a lot of times electronic musicians especially are just sitting in the studio by themselves. It's a very alone experience. Even with the band, it's you and the four guys, but until you release it, like, you don't know how the rest of the world is going to respond. And so it's kind of weird being able to like just have this conversation and then put it together in like a couple hours and then put it out, and like
I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy. It's been pretty trippy actually. And like it also has made me more aware of how hard it is to record audio and how hard it is to put together something.
Beyond that, I think about how hard it is to form a coherent thought. Because everything makes sense in your own head. And then you listen to people on radio and you're like, they do a great job of just saying things concisely. And then maybe you listen to like a home video and you're like, what was I saying? I didn't follow a line of thought at all. And you just sit there and kind of hope that it comes together in the podcast.
Yeah, totally. Like a few minutes ago, I was totally stumbling over my words. I'm like, this is going to sound so dumb when I'm listening to this later. But I think the cool thing about being, yeah, I know, right? The cool thing about doing this podcast, though, is I love how transparent it is and how, like, people realize, okay, that part, like, wasn't the best, but, like, whatever. Now this part I really enjoy or whatever.
I listen to a ton of podcasts. Like, I can't stress this enough. I have, I think, 11 or 12 that I listen to every episode of.
Just to give some people some recommendations, what podcasts do you listen to?
I got to say, my favorite's Joe Rogan podcast, which I was about to get into that. It's a similar form.
That was my biggest inspiration, for sure.
I can tell. It shows. It's a conversation. It's not an interview. And I think that you get so much more involved in it as the listener because you're just another person sitting in the room with people, right? And then Star Talk is have you ever heard of that one?
Neil deGrasse Tyson,
exactly.
Yeah.
That's the first podcast I ever listened to. Love that podcast. I would say Waking Up podcast with Sam Harris.
Yeah.
Love that podcast. That dude is awesome. I've read all of his books. If you haven't read his work, start off with a book called Free Will. It's like an hour and a half if you download it as an audiobook.
It'll kind of blow your mind, too.
Yeah, he's so articulate. Nobody's that articulate.
Yeah.
And it's not that he's using big words. He uses big words, but he's not sitting there trying to just flex his mental muscle. Like, look how many words I know. He sits there and says the most simple 2-syllable words you've ever heard, but there's no other better word to use. And he's so concise that it's almost painful because you realize, I don't know how to speak English well.
Yeah. I'm trying to get better every day with this podcast, for sure.
No, you do a great job at it.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, I listened. It was like studying game tape, you know?
Yeah.
I listened to a bunch of your podcasts and a handful of podcasts earlier today.
That's awesome.
Like, practicing for the day.
The podcast. That's cool, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Which ones did you listen to, by the way?
Peterson, The Musical Genius.
Oh, yeah. CC?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and then
dude.
the first one I watched was
I couldn't think of a good title for that one with CC. I was like, how do I make something compelling? Because my biggest thing is I want it to be a little bit clickbaity because I've noticed that the most popular episodes have the most compelling titles. So I'm like,
it works.
Yeah.
Because you forget that it's clickbait 10 seconds into it.
Yeah, exactly. So I've got to think of a good title for this one.
Yeah.
I'm thinking something punny because you're like the king of puns. I've got to make something.
I don't think I've made a single pun on this one.
You really haven't. I think in the beginning you said the thing about the shoe, the sole,
right,
with the American Idol. I was like, that's very Alex with the pun.
Just bring me in on other episodes to be your pundit.
There we go. They're coming out.
Everybody rolls their eyes at home.
But yeah, so you said you listened to the one with CC and the one with Peterson.
Yeah, and then I switched around on a couple. What was the name of the girl just recently? Fitness girl. Like 2 episodes back.
Remy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, listen to hers as well.
Hers was awesome.
Follow her on Instagram as well because of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's really cool. I like her. She was I just, recently met her actually, and I was just like, this girl's really awesome. I need to have her on my podcast.
It's pretty cool to have a setting where you're like, I met somebody interesting. Now I just have to internalize it.
Yes, it's actually awesome. Like, just in the past few weeks, I've realized how fucking cool it is. That like you said, I finally have an outlet where I can showcase my cool friends, or I can showcase kind of like the I scratch your back, you scratch mine kind of thing. Like before that, I didn't have something where if I met someone cool, I couldn't just be like, I wish we could have like an awesome conversation, or I wish I could like help you in some way, or.
Well, as an interesting person, and I'm referring to you, there aren't a whole lot of outlets to be like, this is what I do. Your interests and your what you do in life is you just live an interesting life and do cool things, and you include people on them, be it with Snapchat or with Instagram. You've always done a great job at that.
Thanks, man.
And people are always interested in hearing what you have to say and what you're doing because you're always doing something that's worthwhile to be a part of. And I see the podcast as an extension of that, as a means for you to not just have 15-second, 10-second blurbs, but to expand on that and say, you saw what I was doing the other day. Here's a whole conversation that touches on some of that and everything else that makes that person that way.
Totally, man. I couldn't have said it better myself. Like, I always felt like I was lacking something. The 10-second blurbs of Snapchat really help you be concise.
Right.
And
which is an art form.
totally. I love Snapchat. I have a love-hate relationship with Snapchat right now because I feel like I have a big audience there, but I feel like they're kind of just, their product has been lacking in the past as far as innovation. Like Instagram stories is really good. Actually, I hate to admit it, but like Instagram stories is really good. I have to make one.
I keep telling myself I will.
I've been starting to use it because of my podcast Instagram. So I've been posting a lot of like behind the scenes of the podcast. Yeah, stuff, of course. But I love what you said about having an outlet, because I was talking with my friend Alan, and we had lunch together after I recently started the podcast, and he helps run another podcast. And he was like, how are you getting these guests, man? Like, how are you finding these people? And I was like, dude, like, these are my friends. Like, I genuinely, I try to be as interesting of a person, not just for my own sake, because I like, a lot of different things, but also I make a concerted effort to be the most attractive version of myself, not just in a vain way of the physical sense, but also like I want to be someone that other people want to hang out with. And I think that this podcast is just an extension of that, where now I can have this outlet of like, yo, dude, you're awesome. Like, come into my world and let's have a conversation, and then let's share it with people. And it's weird even saying this, but like a lot of people have hit me up saying like, dude, this podcast is awesome and it inspired me to do this, or like, yo, your podcast has inspired me to like do something else or whatever. And I'm just like, what? Like, this is so crazy.
It's awesome. And I think what you do a really great job of, where a podcast is perfectly suited for you, is, I meet a ton of people with music. And it is something I have to, consistently work on to make sure that I am engaging, that I'm having more than just a hi, how are you interaction. And I want to make sure that everybody that I meet and we have something that's personal. It's, beyond just the superficial layer of pleasantries and conversation. That's what you do a really great job of. It appears effortless, though I'm sure it isn't. You make everybody feel like you're their best friend. Like,
I think I really just hate small talk in the way that
it's painful.
I would much rather go deep on something. Like, I want to know what you think about this.
Right.
Like, I think it's just my genuine curiosity, because especially, like you said, the Joe Rogan podcast, huge inspiration for me, because I love that Joe will be able to take someone that he might not agree with 100%.
It's awesome.
And have a great conversation, and then be able to have a healthy debate or have a understanding.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He does a great job at being respectful.
Yeah.
Even with people with wildly different views.
Totally. And that's another reason why I love the face-to-face aspect. Because, like, for example, I did a podcast with my friend Lindsay the other day, and we were talking about some really heavy stuff. And I think that if it wasn't face-to-face, it would have been way harder to connect.
Right. And face-to-face, you can forget that there are microphones.
Very true. And that's what I love about the clip-ons. A lot of people for a podcast either do like a handheld or even just the thing in front of your face. You're still having to like kind of think about it. I like the clip-on because you don't have to think about it at all. And you're just kind of there. And I actually didn't even really realize how awesome they were going to be until I bought them. And I was like, this is great. Like, I really, really like this.
I need to get some.
Yeah, because the microphone like follows you. Like, even if you were to move or whatever. Because, yeah, that's a whole nother technical side. But man, I really appreciate that that you really like the podcast too, because
dude. Well, Connor Peterson and I were talking about starting our own podcast.
Yeah.
Right around the same time that you released your first one.
Yeah.
And the two of us both listened to, we didn't say, hey, let's talk after we, listen to his podcast. We listened to it independently because we were both very curious about it. And we got back and we were kind of quiet at first. And I was like, did you listen to the podcast? He's like, yeah, I did. And I was like, it's really good. He's like, it was. And I'm like, we got some work to do. Hey,
dude, that's awesome.
You do such a great job at just stepping right into it and having it be a comfortable conversation. It's not contrived, it's not rehearsed, and it still follows a good progression where it's comfortable to listen to, and there aren't really a whole lot of lulls, and that says a lot about you as a host.
Dude, I appreciate that a lot, and we've been talking about me as a podcast host for a while now. but dude, I really do appreciate it, and it is like totally mind-boggling how much positive feedback I've been getting, but also, to be fair to myself, I have been pouring like tons of time into it.
And that's the thing about anything that you put out to social media, or not necessarily, it doesn't have to be social media. It could just be anything you're pouring out to other people. It seems like it's just a one-time product where it's just like, oh, I just did this little thing. But it's like, you don't understand how many hours you spent just researching which microphone you're going to buy and which recorder you're going to use. And are you going to use Adobe Audition? Are you going to use this? Are you going to use that? Do you use Adobe Audition?
I do use Adobe Audition.
I figured you had to. But you sit there, you put all that time into learning that, then you listen to other people and how they structure their conversations. And by the end of it, you put in a couple hundred hours that you didn't realize you had.
Exactly. That's the other thing, man, is trying to balance like my other, like working out and all this stuff, like, you know, in my real job that I'm working full time and like trying to figure out all this stuff. It's been pretty gnarly, but also it's been super, super fun. And I think another cool thing is being, like I said, being able to showcase my friends and having an outlet to talk about that. And another thing that you brought up a little bit ago was the flow of it. I really like starting off and kind of talking about like how did you start and where did you come from, and then we'll kind of move on to what you're up to now and stuff. That's been super fun because a lot of times you don't get a chance to sit down with your friends and be like, oh wait, like how many brothers and sisters do you have?
You forget that they actually have a life.
Yeah. You just tend to think of them as like a stationary object. It'd be weird of me to like go and sit down with Connor and be like, yo, let's like talk about your life for an hour and like talk about when your sister went on Dr. Phil and like went to rehab and all this. And it, you know, it's like, but with the podcast, it's a cool outlet to be able to sit down and really get to know somebody on like a deeper level. And this is like the longest conversation we've ever had, just uninterrupted, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Which is cool because, like I said, I've been your friend for a few years now.
4 years.
Yeah, like 4 years. And we've never, in the day of social media, it's sad, but we never get to actually sit down and have an uninterrupted face-to-face conversation. And like I said, it would be kind of, not weird, but just out of character for me to be like, hey man, let's go to your house and have a conversation for...
I've never been to your mom's house, the house that you grew up in, but you just want to sit in the living room for a while?
And make your mom leave.
My mom was sitting there in her office working, and I forgot to tell her that we were doing this. And so like 4 or 5 hours ago, I'm like, hey, you think you'll be working around 8? She's like, yeah, I'll be working till like 11. I went, what are the odds you can work elsewhere?
That's hilarious, man. Yeah, that's one big challenging part of the podcast is figuring out where to record. Because my setup is super portable, so I can go pretty much anywhere. But like if I'm doing it at my house, like trying to figure out, you know, are there going to be people? Where are you even living around? Now? I'm living with my parents right now too, so it's kind of funny. Yeah, like is my brother going to be there? Are my parents going to be there?
There's so much to figure out.
Hey guys, I'm recording. Can you be quiet? Or like trying to figure out if I'm going somewhere else. Hey, are your roommates going to be around? Like, I'm not trying to be that guy, but if whatever.
A lot of people that don't do anything with audio recording, they don't think about those things.
Mm-hmm. Even like the AC in the background or like a fan.
That's the worst. Like I sat there, I actually had my recorder going earlier, and I tested at what level I could turn them up without being caught.
Dude, that's so awesome.
I did that like an hour before you came here. That's what I was doing.
Awesome.
That's why I have my computer over here.
I love that, dude. That's so awesome. Yeah, like lots of people don't even have any concept of audio like production, and I'm like you said, I have a lot of interests, and I'm kind of a nerd of just like I love to learn stuff, and so I've never like attempted really to like make music on my own, but I have friends that do, and so I've been around that space, and like I kind of know a little bit about mics, and like one of my friends recently is like, yo, I want to start a podcast, can you help me figure this out? And I'm like, I'm not gonna lie, you got to do your own research. Exactly. There's a lot of technical things that you've got to figure out.
Yeah, that I still have no idea about. You know, I did I'm a serial researcher as well. Like, if I get an obsession, I get really into that thing. I research it for months on end with like no break. And then a lot of the time I move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
So then people will be like, hey, I want to get into that. And it's the same thing. Well, you got to get obsessed.
Yeah.
And it'll all come with that.
You do. And like you said, you listened to a few podcasts this morning, like before, just to kind of like gear up.
Studying the game.
Yeah. I've been listening to podcasts for a couple of years. And so a lot of people have been really complimenting me like, yo, dude, I really love it how you do this. And I really love it how you think about it this way. And I'm like, dude, it's because I'm just copying the people that I really like listening to.
Exactly.
And I know what I like in a podcast. So I'm going to try to create the podcast that I want to create.
Mm-hmm.
But we've talked about my podcast a lot. Let's go back to
talking about a podcast on a podcast.
I know, right?
That's so meta.
That is so meta, man. But to kind of go back to your story a little bit, what's next? I know you're talking about that you were going to that. What's the music festival?
Milwaukee Summerfest.
Milwaukee Summerfest, and you said it's like the largest music festival.
Yeah,
in the
it's
country?
900,000 people over 9 days, I believe.
900,000 people.
Yeah.
Is that like 100,000 per day, basically?
It's a few 100,000 per day with some overlap, each day.
Okay, makes sense.
So right now we're scheduled to play on like a 3,000 person stage, and they're going to try to bump us up to a 20,000 person stage.
Wow, 20,000 people.
I randomly met the coordinator of this whole festival 2 years ago, but I didn't have a product that could warrant being on any real stage then. So when this whole thing came around with the commercial, my manager sends me a text and he's like, hey, did you know that American Family Insurance is the lead sponsor at the Summerfest, and we have the contact for the guy at Summerfest? I was like, holy crap, hit that guy up. So 20 minutes later, we get a response, and they're like, sorry, Alex, we're completely booked. The lineup's final. They've got, I think, 1,000 bands over the 9 days.
Wow,
something like
1,000.
Something like that, yeah.
That's crazy.
Which is just amazing that they could even coordinate that.
That's bonkers.
Right? So he said, if something opens up, which probably something will open up because there are a lot of people, somebody's going to drop out. We'll let you know. Not 30 minutes later, he gets a call back saying, hey, a guy dropped out. Do you want to be here on July 4th? We're like, we'll see you there. So we set all that up, but it pays terribly to go out. When they have that many bands, they can't pay people enough. They save all the money for the headliners. So
who's headlining, by the way, just so people can get an idea?
Every day there's another headliner. The day that we're going to be there is Chainsmokers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's diverse then.
Oh yeah, dude, they've got the Chainsmokers. Alan Stone's gonna be there.
Ah.
He'll be there.
Maybe you'll get to meet him?
No, he's there the day before we leave.
Oh.
So he'll be gone by the time we get there. Damn.
Darn.
But so they've got this huge lineup, ton of different headliners. What they've told us is if they have somebody who's on a bigger stage drop out, they will move us to that big stage. So.
Is it because of the American Family thing?
Exactly. So American Family is, saying, hey, get this guy on the bigger stage. Now as a band, we play the song Lovely Day that I played in the commercial. So I thought, how can I afford this trip? It's going to be like $6,000 just in travel to get the band out there. And they're only paying us $1,000. So I can't go in the whole $5,000. So I contacted AFI, American Family, and said, hey guys, if I get you video of this whole trip, like documentary style, while we're on our way to the airport, when we're getting in the rental car, while we're backstage, while we're doing every little bit of it, if I can get you video of all that you can later use as promotional material to back up the commercial. The whole thing, the commercial is hashtag Dream Fearlessly. With the right support, any dream is possible, right?
So they got you on this commercial, and now with the right support,
2.5 months later,
AFI, they can pump you up to this
exactly.
$3,000. How many people?
3,000 person stage.
3,000 person stage.
In a different part of the country. So I sent that to them. They were like, we'd love it. We'd love the footage. So I hired on a film crew, documentary crew, to come. So they're going to be joining us, 2 guys. They're going to get footage of us while we're playing. We're going to have like a live at Milwaukee DVD kind of thing. Obviously, it's not going to be a DVD.
Yeah.
I just don't know another term for it.
Yeah.
A live video. YouTube video extraordinaire. It's gonna be like an hour-long video, probably.
It is funny to think about where you're gonna put a video nowadays. It's like where is this gonna go? It's like
on my
YouTube.
Google Drive.
Google Drive. Never to be seen by anyone
Right?
except for those I share this album with.
So yeah, I sent that idea over to American Family, and they were like, yeah, we'd love to. We'll cover your travel expenses. So I just sent them an expense report of what it's going to take us to get out there. They got back to us, and they're going to reimburse us for all our costs.
That's super legit.
And then while we're out there, they had us come a day early. I'm going to do voiceovers for some of their online marketing.
Oh, nice.
And they have like this big display at the front of the festival where they've got graffiti artists and some famous people doing meet and greets. And I'm going to be sitting in the corner as the least famous people if they just pretend that I'm famous for that day.
A Z-list celebrity.
Exactly. We're into a different languages alphabet. So it's going to be a really cool weekend. But
that's super awesome.
Beyond
that's July 4th weekend?
Yeah.
Nice.
So we're going to be out there the 2nd to the 6th.
Nice.
And we get back and we're going to record 2 new singles. Fall rolls around, we're going to record a whole new album. Probably do an EP, honestly.
That's really cool, man. That's really awesome.
It's been a lot of fun.
I was going to say, with the commercial thing and all that, you also mentioned that you had to kind of change your name on Facebook because people are like literally hitting you up.
Yeah, I didn't expect that at all.
Because in the commercial it literally says like,
it says
with
my
the
name.
right help, Alex Guthrie can whatever, and so it literally says your name.
Yeah, so no joke, about 1,000 people have messaged me in the first week. 1,000 people messaged me, and
wow.
So it was just like every couple of minutes I was getting a notification.
What kind of messages?
Most of them were, hey, saw the commercial, something nice. And I tried to message back to as many as I could. And then I had a couple that were like hate mail on. One guy said, hey, I listened to the commercial and the lyrics are terrible. You should not be a songwriter. It isn't your suit. And I was like, well, it's a Bill Withers song. It's a song from 1974
My biggest
whatever.
question is, who the fuck is that guy and why does he take the time out of his day to find who you are and tell you that he doesn't like you?
Honestly, it was really fun because I mimicked the form that he used and said, hey, he wrote out all the times I said lovely day in the song and put it in quotations. And I wrote, here's a sample of my new song. Thank you for your support. Thank you for support. And I just said, thank you for your support 15 times, like he said lovely day 15 times, and sent it right back to him. Needless to say, we didn't make friends, but.
That's funny. Dude, I had a funny, like I said, I've gotten a lot of positive support from this podcast, but there's this one, so on Snapchat, I have a lot of people that I don't know. And this one guy messaged me the other day and was like, hey, I really love the podcast. And I'm like, oh, dude, thanks. I really appreciate it. And he goes, just kidding, puss boy. Wouldn't listen to that shit if I had the chance, or something like that. And I just started cracking up.
Just send him my way.
Because I was like, oh, my first hater. Like, it was just like so funny because.
It's the weirdest thing. Why do people care?
I think he's like 13. Like, I think he literally is just ridiculous. He probably listened to the podcast just because, like, he probably did. But it's just funny because I think it's mainly people just want to get a rise out of you. They want to see what'll happen. And they want to feel important. They're like, this guy's on TV. He sucks. I'm way better. Let's see what he says when I confront him.
It's amusing. It's really amusing. But I got a ton of messages, 99% of which were nice. And it got to the point where...
Were people trying to hit on you?
Mostly older men and women.
Creepy.
There were very few people our age that had the gall to just say something obscene. But I had like some older women that made some very, very, very forward comments.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, good for them and their confidence, but I'm not interested, thanks. So I changed my last name to my middle name on Facebook to avoid that and have some level of privacy.
That's good. And the messages have ceased dramatically?
Yeah. Still get them on Instagram, but it's a public
Instagram
forum.
is Instagram, yeah. It is weird how you like Facebook, no. Instagram, that's cool. You know?
I mean, it's my music page. I've got a music page and a photography page.
Yeah. I was going to ask, what kind of got you into photography too? Because obviously like bands and photography kind of go hand in hand a little bit because live performance. Is that what kind of brought you into that? No,
actually, take a step back and go a little bit down a rabbit hole. But I went through just a weird period. I had been dealing with kind of depression my whole life. By like age 4, I was kind of an existentialist.
Huh. What do you think caused that?
There's a lot of history in my family for depression and mundane mental issues.
I think it's also kind of like a hot button topic nowadays. Everyone wants to talk about it. I mean, for people that don't understand it or, you feel like maybe it's been misrepresented. What would you classify as like depression or whatever?
Well, I think there's definitely a difference between sad and depressed. Sad, you can still have happy days and be depressed. It's like the difference between, when you're elated, you've got this like rush of serotonin and dopamine, you're like, oh, I feel awesome. And you can still have, I feel better than before while depressed. But it's like the second that any cool thing that happened kind of washes away, whatever your baseline is, I think is what I define depression. So if your baseline's normal and then you feel sad, oh, bum, I'm sad today. But if your baseline is just consistently sad, you can still have happy spikes in it. But if the normal is to just not be happy, and like I've always been a happy person, like pretty happy-go-lucky guy, it's just that I've had a fear of death since I was like 4. And that is the main thing that I just, every night, my mind would go to that.
It's funny because a lot of people think that like depression, you'd think of like suicidal thoughts, but you were like afraid of death. So it's kind of like the opposite really, right? Yeah,
and there was a period where I was marginally suicidal. And that's when I decided I was going to go on a soul-searching trip across America. So I sold some stuff, bought a crappy van, and put a bed in it, and put a stove in it, and a dresser, packed it up, and did 44 states, just driving around the U.S.
Wow, I didn't even know you did that much. That's crazy.
I did a 2-month block where I did like 25 states, and then I did another few, like month-long stints.
What was your van called again?
The Moose.
The Moose.
I did not name it. The guy that I bought it from, his kids named it the Big Blue Moose, and so I shortened it to the Moose.
Dude, that's a crazy story. So you were kind of feeling like
that was 2015.
You're just doing some soul searching.
Super depressed. I was dating a really great person. We broke up because of me, because I was depressed and I just needed to go soul searching. Awesome person, still friends. But I went on this trip, and thankfully it kind of got me out of a funk. Did my soul searching, went around, met a ton of different people, had my great experiences, but I was just taking photos with my iPhone at the time. And I got back and I'm like, man, I enjoyed photography. Wish I had a real camera. So I got into my, obsessive research mode, and I put in a lot of time with researching photography. I got a couple books on it, listened to a bunch of podcasts and YouTube videos, ended up buying a camera, and now recently I just purchased like my 6th camera.
Wow.
Buying and selling.
Nice, yeah. And you've always been like a flipper too.
Yeah.
We didn't even talk about the whole like reptile thing, but you were saying in the beginning of the podcast you love reptiles and all that. And you've been like buying and selling all kinds of reptiles, snakes, turtles.
Over 350.
Holy shit. That's crazy, man. You've had over 350 reptiles, and that includes like turtles.
It's mostly snakes.
Okay, I was going to say.
Probably had 10 to 20 lizards in that, and maybe like 5 turtles.
So it's really been pretty much snakes.
It's almost exclusively snakes. So I got out of it when I got into middle school, because along with the whole I want to play guitar and be cool thing, I was snake boy. Like I got called snake boy.
Yeah, you don't want to be snake boy.
And I was the weird guy who was really into snakes in elementary school. So I tried to drop that as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And then once I got confident with myself and what I was interested in, like the end of high school, I was like, fuck them.
Yeah.
I'm going to get snakes again.
That's really cool, because I remember you and Connor were like flipping snakes. Like,
yeah.
So you guys would, correct me if I'm wrong, you would kind of figure out how you could get, discount snakes or whatever.
We get snakes that people were tired of having, snakes that were sick. That, I know at least, some standard veterinary stuff for snakes, because it's pretty cut and dry. So if it was an easy enough thing to fix, we'd get a snake for basically free. I'd rehabilitate it, and then we'd sell it at a trade show or sell it on Craigslist.
That's crazy. So like some of the time it was like a pretty, people don't think about this, but there's like a market value for certain snakes.
Oh yeah.
And it's like trading a car or something,
that was one of the biggest sources of income for probably 2 years of my life.
Wow. So how many snakes at a time? Like how many was the most you ever had at like once?
I think it was 37.
Holy crap.
In my room at our apartment at West 22 in Kennesaw.
Wow. And your roommates were cool with it?
Yeah. They thought it was cool. They'd come in my room and show other people the snakes.
Yeah. How many rodents are you buying?
We were buying a lot of rodents, man.
That makes sense. That's hilarious, dude.
It was a full-time job.
Yeah, I bet. That's hilarious. What was the biggest snake that you ever had?
Biggest snake I ever had was a 17-foot reticulated python.
Were you ever scared of it?
I don't really get scared of snakes. You have to have an appreciation for the ones that can harm you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm terrified of spiders. If a spider lands on me, I flip out and scream. But
That's hilarious.
snakes don't bother me at all. Venomous, non-venomous. As long as you know how to handle it.
Poisonous?
You
I'm just messing with
monster.
you. I'm just messing with you.
For those of you at home.
For those of you who don't know, there's no such thing as a poisonous snake. Only venomous.
Actually,
Oh,
there are 2 types of poisonous snakes.
really?
One is a garter snake in California. It eats the Oregon newt. The Oregon newt has a neurotoxin, which is one of the most toxic types of animals in North America, the Oregon newt. It eats that. It is not affected by the toxin. So animals that eat this type of garter snake will get killed because it has this newt's toxins in its system.
Huh. So it's not creating its own poison, but because it's eating another animal that has poison.
Which is
it's
actually
poisonous?
how a lot of poisonous animals acquire their poison.
Really?
So poison dart frogs are based on their diet.
That's very
They don't
interesting.
produce their own poison. Yeah.
That's very interesting. What about, I couldn't even say it with a straight face. At work, there's like this picture of a poison dart frog, and one day I said, it was a rainbow poison dart frog, and I said a raisin poison fart dog. and so I was about to say, what about the raisin poison fart dog?
My brother lives in Costa Rica where they have raisin poison dart. I can't even say it. I'll ask him.
They have raisin poison fart dogs there?
Raisin poison fart dogs. Wow.
Now every time you
That's
think
a
of it.
Photoshop
Yeah.
job that needs to have
Yes.
happen.
A raisin poison fart dog. It's an endangered species.
I actually have half of that. I have a fart dog.
He's not rainbow and he's not poison. That's funny. But we were talking about before we talked about snakes. What were we talking about? We were saying flipping stuff. Yeah. So you've always been kind of like flipping stuff for money.
Yeah.
And Alex's mom just came in. But what were we talking about right before that though? We were talking about can't remember.
Oh.
You're a good watchdog.
Yeah. Hey,
I
Darwin.
guess you're done.
No, we're still recording right now, but it's all good.
The hand signal was me saying, "You're free to go up."
Oh no, it's all
I was
good.
saying you have to creep up the stairs.
No,
Okay to
you're
just
fine.
walk up.
You're totally fine. Yeah, we are really recording.
Yeah, we're still recording.
No, you're good.
I know. It was misleading. That was my job. My bad.
No, but what we're
Exit, Jackie Guthrie.
Oh, it's okay. This is the whole transparency of the podcast.
Right?
But we were talking about reptiles and all that.
Right.
Yesterday, I was at the Washington, D.C. Zoo, and I saw a bunch of crazy reptiles. The craziest one I saw was, the craziest one I saw was an alligator snapping turtle.
Those are so cool.
It was huge. I did not realize how huge those
They
things
get
are.
massive.
Yeah, it was
significantly larger than the common snapping turtle. So we have both in our areas, though we have more common snapping turtles. Common snapping turtles max out at 40, 50 pounds. I think in some cases they can get 60 pounds. But alligator snapping turtles can get to be 150, 180 pounds, dude.
Dude, that's
a
gnarly.
turtle.
Yeah. It was so gnarly because it was just sitting in the water and I thought it was a rock at first. And I was like, what's inside this tank? And then I was like, holy crap.
You ever want to catch one?
Maybe. Have you ever caught one?
Mm-hmm. If you want to come over sometime. We have a pond in my backyard. A pond that used to be 12 acres, and then they had to breach the dam. So now it's maybe 200 feet by 75 feet wide. And so it's at its deepest point, it's 2.5 feet deep. And we have around 20 snapping turtles in that. And some pretty large sized bass too. I've caught a 3 or 4 pound bass in there.
Wow, that's crazy.
So
how do you catch them?
So there are a couple ways to go about it. The easiest way is you get in a canoe, and with it being so shallow, you can see right where they are. So you just follow the bubbles. You can see them bubbles from them stepping on the leaf litter, and the leaf litter will release oxygen because it's been trapped in there from decomposing. And so you can see the bubble trail of where they've walked. It's not them exhaling, it's just a bubble trail of where they've walked. So you follow that, and 4 feet in front of there, that's where they are. So you just basically, you're gonna pounce on them, you grab the shell on the backside of the shell, or you grab just where the head is, because even though they can wrap their head around, they can't get exactly where their carapace meets their the area where their head is, and you just pounce on them and you grab them.
That's
if you
crazy.
ever want to come over, I do it.
That's crazy. That's really cool. Do people sell those?
I don't know.
No one keeps them as pets, really.
Some people keep them as pets. They can really screw you up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They can bite a chunk out of your hand.
They can. They can break your bones pretty easily.
Wow.
So it's not something you want to mess with unless
Hence
you know
the
how
alligator part of the name.
Yeah, well, the alligator snapping turtles are the bigger ones. We don't have any alligator snapping turtles in my lake.
Gotcha.
Because I would be less inclined to mess with them.
Yeah. Those things are massive.
But yeah, dude, come over and check it out.
Dude,
it's
that
crazy
sounds
to look
awesome.
at.
I'll have to take you up on that. That's sweet.
Or you can use nets.
Yeah. A little bit less intimidating. A little bit less
harder.
Steve Irwin style.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you also, this is like totally bad segue, but I was going to ask you, when did you decide to shave your head? And when did that happen?
I really didn't decide. Genetics decided for me.
Okay.
Both my dad and brother started thinning around the same time, though I was the earliest.
When did you start like balding? Or thinning?
It started becoming noticeable when I was like 17.
Wow.
So my senior picture, you can see that it's made some clear headway, pun intended. But yeah, I was 19 and I could tell it was really going there. I had to wear a hat all the time to hide it. And God forbid, if it rained, the hair clumped together, it looked bad. So my brother has been pushing me to shave my head for years at this point. And there was the St. Baldrick's. Are you familiar?
The what?
St. Baldrick's. It's a cancer charity.
Okay,
you raise
gotcha.
money and they shave your head.
Okay,
In
nice.
solidarity. So I did that, raised some money for cancer, and then publicly shaved my head.
Nice. And then have you just been clean shaven ever since?
Haven't had it grow back since then.
Wow.
Yeah, I was 19, so 4 years ago.
Does it just not really grow? Like, how often do you have to like trim it up?
I trim up about every other day.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, I mean, it grows.
Yeah.
It just is not much on top.
Yeah, gotcha. You don't have the old cul-de-sac cut.
No, I do not. It's crazy how in 5 days I could go from looking 25-ish, I'm 23, but 25-ish, to looking 35-ish from just a few days of hair growth.
Wow, that's crazy, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it's kind of a cool thing because it's just one less thing you don't have to worry about as well.
Yeah, it's nice. I mean, it's annoying to have to remember to do it.
But it's just like shaving your face too.
Yeah, it's cozy. It's nice.
Yeah.
Easy.
Except for getting sunburned.
I have yet to be sunburned there.
Really?
Somehow.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. I've seen definitely a lot of bald dudes that have
I have too.
lots of sunburned head action.
I've seen my brother
But also as an artist, it's something that can kind of define you a little bit too. Like people are like, "Oh, that's the guy."
Yeah, unintentional, but it worked out.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, you didn't really have a choice in it very much,
Yeah.
so unintentional.
Well, thankfully, I have a relatively normal shaped head. I know other people who are bald who have like crazy shapes, geometric patterns that are ever etched into their skull. And mine's more or less smooth.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I don't really know what my head would look like if it was shaped.
Hey, you got a good head of hair. You're gonna be fine.
I know, right? But my mom's father was super bald, and he started balding really early too, like in high school. So, I mean, luckily I'm past that point. But and then my grandfather at my dad's side, he still has a full head of hair. So who knows which side I'm gonna get?
Well, here's the deal. Either way, one of the main things is you have to have some sort of facial hair, and you've got like a killer thick beard. So as long as you have that, like,
I have been weirdly blessed with that. Like a lot
beard,
of
dude.
people are
Yeah.
very patchy,
yeah,
or they can't grow it everywhere, and mine pretty much grows like very evenly and pretty thick.
Yeah.
So my mom doesn't really like the beard that much, but I don't really care. I like it, so I'm gonna keep it.
yeah. I've noticed that pretty much all guys our age are like weirdly beard fixated. You know what I mean?
I think it's also kind of a trend right now too to have the beard.
Well, absolutely. But I'm saying, like, I meet a guy and I'm like, hey, dude, killer beard. I shouldn't have said that. That's weird. We don't know each other.
Killer beard, bro. That's hilarious. That's funny. I remember what we were gonna say about the snake thing too, because we were going back. We were talking about your
Right.
trip, and we were talking about you kind of being a little bit depressed and whatever, and like just taking this massive trip, and then getting into photography, and like you were saying, you were obsessed with snakes, and then you became like obsessed with cameras and all that kind of stuff. For someone who's like just starting out and just wanting to get into photography, what would you recommend for them? Because like for me, I actually, I've messed around with some of my friends' cameras and stuff, and like I I like taking pictures.
If you have a good eye.
Yeah. And like I really am into like Photoshop and stuff. I'm really fluent with all that, but I just don't have like a great device to capture images. What would you recommend?
There are so many good YouTube channels about it. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can't go wrong. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are a handful that I would recommend that I could send links to, but any of them, as long as they've got 50,000 or more views, they probably have those views for a reason. Mm-hmm. There's so many people that are just excited about it, that are willing to share their knowledge with you, and I just watched a bunch of YouTube videos, found a couple of online books.
What was your first camera that you got?
A Nikon D5100.
Would you recommend that camera?
Yeah, that's a few years old.
Okay, gotcha.
Since then, they have the newest version. I think it's like the 55 or 5600.
Gotcha.
And it's a phenomenal. I mean, it's an amazing camera.
Very nice.
Not that expensive. You can pick up like a D5300, which is just a few years old, with a good starter lens on it, like a lens that I would still use now, for like $300-400.
That's solid. Yeah.
I mean, it's going to take incredible pictures.
My biggest thing is like I kind of want something like a point and shoot kind of thing a little bit, but I also want like, because on one hand I'm like I want something that I'm not going to be afraid to carry around, but at the same time I do want something that I'm like, okay, I'm going to go out for the sole purpose of like taking pictures, so I don't mind taking a big camera. I'm kind of just torn because there's so many options.
That's a good thing to bring up. Like, you need to have some sort of idea of what you're going to use it for.
Totally.
Because that makes a huge difference of what camera you would buy.
Totally. Use case is like one of the biggest.
Yeah, I used to have a DSLR, and the camera that I just sold was massive. And I loved it when I bought it.
What was it?
Nikon D610. And I thought, oh, it's badass. It's big. It's this huge professional looking thing, and it shot amazing pictures. But I travel so much, and usually I just have my backpack. Like that's what I travel in. I have a backpack that's split. The bottom half is a camera bag, and the top half is just your run-of-the-mill backpack. So I'd put like a couple changes of clothes in the top half, and then
is it that one?
Yeah. So
nice. Gotcha. So you've got the camera part in the bottom, and then like the normal stuff in the top.
I usually keep my drone and like my gimbal up there, but down here,
nice.
I'd have this camera that would take up all this stuff. I could barely carry anything else. So I went with mirrorless, which is similar to a point and shoot in shape. But like you can throw on these little lenses, and it's great for vlogging. It's great for anything. You get your flip out screen, things like that. Yeah. So it really just comes down to what you need.
Does that screen flip around so you can see yourself?
It doesn't. But there are a couple cameras that do, that are the same type of camera that I could recommend to you.
Yeah, because I know like the Canon 70D, that's the newest one, right?
The 70D, but that's a DSLR.
Yeah,
which is a phenomenal camera.
It's and
actually, the one that just came out is the 80D. 70D was
I have 80D already.
Really?
Yeah, I've been diagnosed for a long time.
Well played. I'm so pleased with that.
I got you good on that one.
You got me so well. That was great.
I really have never been diagnosed with ADD. I just thought it was a funny joke.
That was a great joke. I'm thoroughly impressed.
I got you good on that one.
The 80D.
Yes,
to
the
specify.
ATD.
Yes.
That's funny.
Back to camera talk.
Yes.
With Alex and Andrew. Yeah, the mirrorless cameras are what you want, sir.
I see. And there's also, I know, the Sony Mark IV RX100 or something like that. That's like a much smaller one that I've also been looking at, because that's like so portable.
The A6500, it just came out like this month, I think.
Oh, nice. There's like a newer one.
Mm-hmm. The A6500, it's I think about $1,000.
Okay. It shoots in 4K, right? Like for video?
Mm-hmm. And the A6300 also shoots in 4K, which is like 2 years old, but it's got most of the same features.
Gotcha.
My biggest thing for video, screens. You have to have a flip for vlogging.
Totally.
You got to have a screen that you can see yourself.
Exactly.
This has a screen that does this, and a screen that does this and this, but unfortunately, I can't face it towards me.
Gotcha. What would be even the purpose of like flipping it that way? I guess if you're trying to get a weird angle or something.
Yeah, if I'm holding it like this.
Gotcha.
I did not think it would be useful, and there have been so many times that I've needed it.
Huh, that's interesting. Yeah, my biggest thing also is having, because, people that are really, really enthusiasts, they don't care about the autofocus because they're trying to focus on themselves. But if you're doing selfie-style vlogging, you really need autofocus.
Mm-hmm. And if you're doing wildlife photography or you're doing sports photography, you need a good autofocus system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For sure. And if you're doing, obviously, like product photography or whatever, you don't need that because you can get it fine-tuned to exactly what
Have
you
it on a
want.
tripod. Yeah.
Yeah. My friend Luke, I just released his podcast today. He's a photographer. It was a really good
I saw.
podcast. Yeah. Yeah, The Gun.
Yeah.
Yes. He's
Former
he's
Eagle
a lot of
Scout.
things. Yes, indeed. But that was really interesting. We didn't really get into too much like camera talk, so that's kind of fun actually. But we were talking. But to go back to your road trip thing, so that was when you kind of like got into photography, and then
Yeah, the road trip made me realize that I had, I don't even know if a good eye for it, an eye for it that was enough that I was interested in it, you know? I think having an eye for photography ultimately comes down to, do you enjoy taking pictures? Cool. Do you want to take better pictures? Neat. Go on. Because it's so subjective on what's a good picture and what isn't. If you enjoy taking a picture, you probably have a good eye for it, you know?
But on the flip side of that coin, the more expensive your camera
That doesn't mean
not
shit.
mean anything. Just like these microphones on this thing. This whole setup for this podcast, it's about like $260. You could spend $5,000 on a microphone setup, but if you're recording in a shitty environment and there's tons of AC in the background and there's background noise or you're
And you
recording
have a
outside,
bad conversation?
and if you have a bad conversation with some terrible people, nobody's going to listen to your podcast. Just like if you spend $5,000 on a camera, doesn't mean people are going to enjoy your pictures.
Exactly. You got to learn about it, which is where YouTube comes into play. I mean, like YouTube is how I got started on guitar. YouTube is how I learned about most of my reptile stuff. And YouTube is how I know cameras. Like, YouTube is the best school I've ever
It's the
enrolled in.
teacher of the future, man.
Yeah.
Because you can just, any subject you want to learn about, someone has made a video about it, for sure.
And then everybody else who has watched that and thought, I disagree, they've made a better video to correct the other things. And they get more views out of it. It's the democratization of knowledge.
Very true. I love that. Because, I mean, that's what the internet's all about. And a lot of people, you know, can get mad like, oh, well, this guy said the wrong thing. It's like, well, someone's going to make something that'll correct him and it'll
And
be
it's up
better.
for debate.
Yeah.
And often people can be like, no, I'm this. I've been a photographer for 30 years. I know what I'm talking about. And, you know, you get this cool environment where it's not the spoken word.
Yeah.
It's not just like, some guy said it at one time, I read about it in a book there, it's the divine word of photography. You know, it's,
Yeah.
they said this, people deliberated on it, and here's what you should do.
Yeah, for sure. So you started getting into photography, you bought your first camera, and then you continued your road trip, or was this after the road trip?
No, after the road trip completely.
And this was after 44 states.
Yeah.
Wow. What was that like? I mean, you were living by yourself in your van with a hammock.
I had no real idea what to expect. I went out, do you know Jordan Feller?
Don't think so.
Great dude. He came out for the first month.
Okay.
So we booked it to Colorado.
Colorado.
That was actually the first time I had listened to that song. Was, you know, like after we recorded it. Of course.
It's so funny.
It was on the way out there.
Alex has a song called Colorado.
It's about going to Colorado. Who would have known?
Yeah, who would have known? That's so funny. So you guys listened to that?
Yeah, so we listened to it. That was the first song we listened to leaving my driveway.
That's so awesome. That's poetic.
Right? So we got out to Colorado, and our first night actually camping, I was cleaning up all the dishes, and he's in the van. I'm like handing him stuff, and I see some eye shine in my headlamp light, and I think it's my dog. And I like go back to cleaning dishes, and I notice that my dog is by my feet. So I'm like, huh. And I look up, and there's a bear like 10 feet from us, a little black bear.
How big?
I don't know, 3 feet, 4 feet tall. It was on its hind legs.
Whoa.
3 or 4 feet tall is a lot bigger when it's a bear.
Totally, because they're thick in their head.
Yeah. So
They're
I'm
intimidating.
like turning to Jordan. I'm like, Jordan, there's a bear. And he thinks I'm messing with him. So he's laughing at me and kind of being a dick about it. And I'm like, shut up, there's a bear. And he's like, ha ha ha, Alex. Well played, I don't believe you. I'm like, Jordan, take the dog. So I genuinely throw my dog into the van and I just book it in. I close the doors and he's like, oh, this is real. This is happening. Oh crap. So we wait around for a while. I take the machete and the hatchet and I I go and check to see if the bear's gone, and a bobcat walks by.
What?
This
is in Colorado?
This is the first night that we camped in the entire trip. And so I'm like, is this just what things are going to be like? And then we didn't see another animal like that until the end of the trip, after I had dropped him off. Like, he'd been gone for a month and a half, and I stopped back in Colorado at my grandparents' house. And the This is the last night before I booked it home, and a freaking bear broke into my car on the last night.
Were you sleeping in it?
It was one of the only nights I didn't sleep in the van. That's the only reason I left the window open, for the thing to even have a handhold to break in. I normally would have remembered to close all the windows before going to bed, obviously. But this time around, I stayed at my uncle's house, so I slept in his place, forgot to close the door or the window, and right below that window was a brand new open bag of dog food, and it ripped the door open, broke the window off, and took the dog food and drug it up the hill.
Whoa.
Yeah, and
That's
scratched
crazy,
all
man.
along the side of the van.
Wow, that's crazy, man. Nature's insane.
Yeah.
What did you do after that? Didn't you
I taped
sell
it up and I had to go home. No, I didn't even sell the van. Back on December 12th.
Didn't it die eventually?
It killed itself. I think die is an understatement. It went out in a glorious, explosion.
Really? What happened?
I was driving back from Nashville on December 12th of 2016 and had some car problems. Had to go hitchhike to go get some new transmission fluid because we had a leak. Got back to the car, patched it up, thought we made it out and we were good to go. Like an hour into driving back, the whole thing just exploded. The radiator had a leak, that something happened to it and it actually ruptured and spewed this hot radiator fluid everywhere, so it was turning into toxic steam. And at the same time, the transmission main seal broke.
Whoa.
So it just killed itself, and I had to scrap it right then and there.
Did you lose anything? Was there a fire?
No, not a fire. Things were smoking, things were steaming.
But you just pulled over and it was
Pulled
dead?
over, it was dead. There was no point in fixing it. Had
So
to
you
have
didn't
it scrapped.
lose anything in the car?
No.
That's good. How'd you get home?
I Ubered home from Chattanooga at 4 a.m. for $150.
Was the Uber driver pissed?
No, he was about the weirdest guy I've ever met, but he was not pissed. He told us all about how comics are made and how the comic market is very volatile. And we learned all sorts of things that we did not care about.
Anybody who's Uber driving at 4 a.m. is got to be an interesting cat.
But I mean, I got to give it to him. It's 4 a.m. You're driving to a whole different state. I'll listen to as many comic stories as you need to tell me. Thank you for driving us.
Who else was with you?
My bassist at the time.
Nice. That's so funny, man. Dude, road tripping is just something that like so few people will really ever know.
They have to do it.
Yeah.
Like if there's anything in the world.
I need to visit all the states. You've come close, right? I mean, you visited 44.
I've been to 46 of them.
Wow. Which one's left?
I think we got to go to
North Dakota?
both Dakotas, Hawaii, and
Alaska?
I've been to Alaska. Maybe I've been to 47. I think that it's just both the Dakotas and Hawaii are left.
That's funny. My friend Megan, her family took a road trip around the U.S. and did all 50. She said they literally just like crossed the border into North Dakota and were like, well, then just like headed right back. Like literally they only went there to say they went there. That was the only reason.
Sorry, Dakotas.
Sorry, Dakotas, but...
Nobody's ever told me, like, you know what you need to go see? Have you ever heard of the Dakotas?
Yeah, no, never heard that. I've honestly never really heard that about a lot of states, to be honest. Like, you know where you really need to go? Is Wisconsin. Wisconsin's crazy. Like I've never heard that. I'm sure it's great. I'm sure it's a great place.
Tell me one thing about Iowa. I bet you can't.
I know that the Iowa State Cyclones are the mascot because my neighbor went to school there. But besides that, I wouldn't know anything.
Yeah.
Iowa. Pretty much nothing. But we were talking about the road trip and all that. And then, like, you're saying you're kind of, like, depressed at the time, and that's kind of why you went. How did you feel, like, coming back? Were you, like, a changed person completely, or...
I don't think anybody changes completely.
Mm-hmm.
It was more, I had the time to kind of sit down and think about what it was that was bothering me and to just come to terms with it and not let it control my emotions, but instead kind of get a feel for what it's like to... First off, I hadn't really realized that I had been depressed for most of my life until I experienced what baseline neutral was like. I was like, oh, this is awesome. So once I had that feeling, anytime I could feel myself changing for the negative, I just had more of an awareness of what that felt like to stop it.
That's interesting. And when was that you ended that road trip?
That was November of 2015.
Okay, nice. So it's been like a little under 2 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And so now, like, after that road trip, just been making music and...
Making music. I almost quit music about a year ago.
Really? Why'd you want to quit?
Thought about going back to school, and we had hit a plateau in music.
That's interesting.
But instead of that, I decided, I'm going to regret it if I don't hit it full force. And I was going at like, 70% intensity. So I was like, you know what, I need to give it 2 years of 100% intensity. If nothing comes from that, then I can rest assured knowing that I gave it my all. But
That's really cool.
I'll regret it if I don't give it my all. And the second we switched gears and went to giving it, our all, and I say we, my band and my manager and I, things just started happening like the second we switched our mindset.
That's really, really awesome. Like the whole commercial thing. What else? What other kinds of stuff?
It really started in January when we got to do the 30A Songwriter Festival. I met so many great people down there. Met a guy who later became our investor.
Wow.
So
that's cool.
He's helping fund a lot of what we're doing.
So an investor meaning like he's putting money towards the band and then your earnings he'll make back later? Or?
Yeah, he'll make back a percentage and then
that's crazy,
he has options for more investments with an equity stake.
So how does that feel like knowing that someone out there is just like, I believe in you guys so much that...
It's pretty cool, man.
That's so awesome, man.
Yeah, it's nice to have people enjoy your music. It's another thing, it's a different kind of support to have somebody say, I also believe in your music like you do, that I'm willing to risk losing a significant portion of money.
That's crazy. Like, because not only is he saying you guys are really good, but I know that you guys are going to make money. And I'm so much so I'm putting money towards it. That's really, really cool. What other, and you've got the Milwaukee Music Festival?
Milwaukee Summerfest. We've got this big show next Friday. Yeah. So 8 days from now at Eddie's Attic.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is it sold out yet?
We are
pretty close.
Like 8 tickets away.
Nice.
So I think we've sold about 170 tickets.
I get my work schedule today. I'm going to see if I can come.
Yeah.
I need to snag.
Let me know. I'll put you on the guest list.
Cool, man. I appreciate it.
I got you covered.
Thanks, man. I know the guy. That's awesome, dude. So what's next, man? Like,
So we get back from that, and we're gonna be in the studio recording the next 2 singles. Once we record the singles, we've got a whole lot of promotion we have to do behind them. We're getting all sorts of new merchandise printed. We're doing some shows. We're actually doing a podcast with a full band, playing live on a podcast in Chicago. Cool. So we're taking the band up to Chicago, doing something, playing for something called like, oh man, I'm gonna get the name wrong.
Something called like Lollapalooza or something.
No, it's like Val's List. It's something that Oprah endorses up in Chicago. I don't even know what it is, but we got a bunch of cool shows is what it comes down to in the Great Lakes area for August. And then I go visit my brother for 2 weeks in Costa Rica just to hang out, come back, hit it hard with some more touring. And we're touring a few times a month. We go out for 6 days at a time, twice a month.
That's really
pretty
awesome.
Consistently.
That's so cool, man. Like, is it like freak you out that music is like your full-time thing right now? Like, is that weird?
No, it doesn't freak me out at all. I'm elated.
That's awesome, man.
You become jaded to what you're doing because it happens so little by little, like we were talking about earlier, that you don't really take the time to sit back and think of how, you aren't as thankful as you need to be in the moment. Everything is commonplace because it happens gradually. But in the wake of the commercial, I just had a day where I kind of went driving around just to kill some time and went to some places. I've got some photography spots that I just love to go to that are hidden spots in the area.
Yeah.
And I was just sitting in this cow pasture just hanging out with some cows and just took the time to think about what I was doing. And it hit me that high school Alex would consider what I'm doing now making it, And that was a cool realization. And now I recognize that there's a whole lot more work to be done.
Totally.
But if I went back and talked to that version of myself, that dude would have high-fived the shit out of me. And I think that that applies to anybody. Connor Sova, to go back to that guy, he's got his master's now. He's moved to Winston-Salem. He's got a real job with a great salary. He put in a lot of mundane day-to-day work to get there, and I'm sure he hasn't really even taken the time to sit back and think about it. But high school version of him would be freaking out to know that just in 5 short years, he'd be where he is now. And I think
Yeah.
that too few people do take that time to reflect.
Definitely. That's a great way of putting it. Like, high school me would look at me now and be like freaking out.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Wow. That's a good way of putting it. I haven't thought about that.
Think about it. High school you.
Yeah, man. High school me didn't even know what I wanted to do or where I was going to be, but I think I'd be.
High school you would have been so jazzed to meet you.
I think so. I think you're right, because I didn't really know who I was or what I was doing, or, like you said, I was kind of going to college out of obligation, and I was just kind of like letting life take me where I wanted, wherever it wanted me to go, rather than trying to figure out where I wanted to go and pursuing something. So that's cool, man. I love that. But I feel like this is a good place to kind of wrap things up. Is there anything? We've been going for a while, man. It's then like a little over 2 hours. It starts over after 2 hours, so like 2 hours and 8 minutes. Is there anything you want to? Obviously, promoting your music and stuff. People need to go listen to it, of course. How can people listen to your music?
Instagram, the Alex Guthrie. On iTunes, important distinction. There are 2 Alex Guthries on iTunes, Spotify, all those. There's a guy from Australia who, you draw your own conclusions. I'm not necessarily a fan, but that is a personal preference. Go listen to him. His album is The Gentleman, but before you listen to his, my album is Lessons Learned. They don't have a way of differentiating between the two of us. They just consider us one artist.
Really?
Yeah, I've been through every bit that I can go through on talking to all the support lines.
It's extremely frustrating.
It is. We even considered changing the name, to Alex Colton Guthrie or Alexander Guthrie, just to avoid this problem. But there's just nothing around it. Anyway, So my album is Lessons Learned. His album is The Gentleman. Listen at your own discretion and whenever you want to, but check mine out first. Lessons Learned.
I won't recommend The Gentleman. I've never listened to it, but I have listened to Lessons Learned, and it's really good.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, we'll have new music coming out soon. Facebook, Alex Guthrie Music.
That's awesome, man. And you also have your photography Instagram too.
The Visual Guthrie.
The Visual Guthrie. I like it. So if people are interested in that, follow him there. But anything else you want to?
No, just thank you for including me on the podcast.
Dude, I really appreciate it. And basically for anyone out there, I feel like I don't always do this on the podcast, but I feel like a kind of like moral of the story here is like keep pushing and like keep doing your thing. Because like you said, you almost like gave up on music. A lot of people would have, oh man, I only made it to round 3 of American Idol. Guess I'm not good enough. Or damn, this doesn't really seem to be working out. Guess I'll quit. Or man, I'm feeling depressed. I'm just gonna go back to school or whatever. And like, I love it that you said it yourself. Like, the high school me would be super proud of where I am right now. So I owe it to myself to just like.
Yeah, if it's worth doing, it's not gonna be easy. That's
awesome, man. Well, dude, I really appreciate it. And signing off, Alex and Andrew.
Yes.
We'll talk to you guys later.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks again for listening, everybody. If you are going to Summerfest next week, or you happen to live in Milwaukee, definitely go check out the Alex Guthrie Band. He's going to be performing on the 4th of July at 12:30 p.m. at the Johnson Controls World Stage, whatever that is. But if you're up there, go see him. Also, make sure you follow Alex on his social media accounts, and also go to alexguthriemusic.com/tour to find all of his upcoming tour dates. Lots of shows around the Atlanta area and some other nearby spots. He's actually got a show I'm going to tomorrow night at Eddie's Attic, but that show is completely sold out. The next time he will be there is on Friday, December 1st. So go get your tickets now before it sells out again. The tickets are only $12, people. Go do it. Also, make sure to go listen to Alex's album, Lessons Learned. It's really, really good, and I'm not just saying that because he's my friend. It really is a great album. Go listen to it. And don't touch that dial, folks. Don't touch that dial. We've got more musical surprises in store. Since you guys like that first song I played so much, I'm going to play you another one. Another one of Alex's tasty tunes at the tail end of this podcast. So don't leave just yet. Stick it out. we're going to listen to another one of Alex's songs together. But episode 23 is coming up next with my friend Heidi Uzelac. Heidi is an actress from Atlanta, and let me tell you guys, this episode was fantastic. I know I say that about pretty much all of them, but I had so much fun recording this one last night. Heidi is super amazing. She's a very inspiring woman, and she told some crazy stories in this podcast about her childhood, growing up in a broken family, moving to LA at a young age to pursue her acting career, stories from Beverly Hills High School, her horror stories of dealing with her terrible management, how she intentionally fired herself from an acting gig, a love story, manifesting things into your life, joining and leaving Buddhism, and so much more. She had so many good stories. It was crazy. And I loved that episode. That will be coming out very, very soon. So keep it locked, boys and girls. If you want to support the podcast, the best way to do that is to go to iTunes or the podcast app if you have an iPhone and find the Andrew Deitch podcast. There are literally going to be thousands of people listening to my voice right now on this podcast. And as of right now, I have 32 5-star reviews on iTunes. That math don't add up. If this is your first time joining me, you get a pass, and I want to thank you for listening. But if you guys have been listening since day one to every podcast, you guys are slacking. No, but seriously, it takes like 2 minutes to go rate the podcast. So if you enjoyed the podcast, please, I would really appreciate the review. It's all I'm asking, folks. I've put a lot of time and effort into making these podcasts as awesome as I can. And if you enjoy it, then it really, really would mean a lot for me for you to rate the podcast, and we can do it. I've only got 4 more weeks to get featured in the iTunes new and noteworthy section, so I really need your help. Please go rate it 5 stars and download all the episodes. That is really, really helpful. If you want to follow me on all of my other social media platforms, the best way to find me is to go to my website, andrewdeitch.com. That's Andrew, DEITSCH.com. And you can find all the links to my social media stuff. Okay, let's listen to some more of Alex's music, because that's way cooler than me talking about myself. So to close out this episode, I'm going to give you another taste of Alex's music. This song is called Luckiest Man. It's really good. I'm pretty sure a handful of people have played this song at their wedding, and rightfully so. I'm pretty sure every girl listening to this podcast is about to fall in love with Alex, by the way, after listening to this song. So it's probably a good thing he changed his name on Facebook. Just kidding. But seriously, I hope you guys enjoy the song, and I'll see you next time, folks. So to close us out, here is Luckiest Man by Alex Guthrie off his album Lessons Learned. Talk to you later, everybody.
Used to think it's stupid to be lost in love, and now that I have you, it's all I've been dreaming of. Pent up and lost, I was stuck in a rut until you came along with a kiss, and I finally found my luck. 'Cause I'm the luckiest man that ever did live to have you in my arms. I'm the luckiest man to ever know love. I got love that'll weather the storm. I'm the luckiest man to call you my own. I wouldn't have it any other way. Said I'm the luckiest man 'cause of you, and baby, I'm here to stay. Baby, I'm here to stay. You can call me a lover, and you can call me your friend. You can call me whenever, when your heart needs some mend. 'Cause I'm in love with you, baby. I know you feel the same too. Let's stop the games that we're playing. I just wanna get along with you. 'Cause 'cause I'm the luckiest man that ever did live to have you in my arms. I'm the luckiest man to ever know love. I got love that'll weather the storm. I'm the luckiest man to call you my own. I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm the luckiest man 'cause of you. And baby, I'm here to stay. Oh yeah, baby, I'm here to stay. Na 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 na.